Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is Wednesday, June the 2nd. So we're having a little bit of a quiet sound on Shadowverse right now, and I don't know if that's just because my ears might be stopped up or if it does seem like Shadowverse is a little quiet. So I'm going to check the settings just to make sure those haven't been changed. Apparently the premium pass, which I thought was called the battle pass for Shadowverse before, has been switched over. Alright, so let's just go over the settings. Yeah. This is a little too low. So if that was 3 and we add 2 there, then we add 2 there, Shadowverse. And then we add 2 there. That sounds a little bit better, in my opinion. And apparently we are at just the absolute wrong resolution, which I don't know how that happened. I suspect what I did is I may have let what's its name, the NVIDIA experience, GeForce experience, change over some settings. Also, it might have been a case of there being it might very well be a case where because I changed the DPIs, this game has just not been at the right resolution up until this point. Interesting. You can toggle the different background locations, but some of these are temporary, obviously, and so because I would think that we don't get to keep this background forever, because that would just take a lot of space up on hard drives of phones, particularly not actual hard drives on phones, but the flash memory. Alright, well, I think we fixed the audio issue. Let me know in the chat if all of a sudden that's way too loud. That sounds good to me, but then again, my audio is now going through several loops and hoops to do anything, so there is definitely a chance that it's an absolute fact that I'm hearing things differently than I could potentially be hearing things at different levels than what the video is recording at. For the accountability section, I finished Agatha Christie's The ABC Murders. I was completely wrong about who I thought the murderer was. I think it isn't particularly a great murder mystery, at least in the video game form that it depicted, in that there really wasn't a lot of chance for you to really have seen evidence or been able to deduce who the murderer was. This is very common in murder mysteries, and like almost all the Sherlock Holmes stories are the exact same way, where you could have never possibly guessed who the person was. Often the person just shows up in the last chapter. The video game aspect of the ABC Murders actually tries to make it a lot more obvious and easier to guess who it is, and yet it still left a lot of room for a misguess, and that's what happened. I think there is arguably a problem in particular with the way women are written by Agatha Christie in the Hercule Poirot stories. That it's almost certainly a product of its time, but I was suspecting one of the female characters, and literally none of the female characters in the ABC Murders are anything other than victims of murder or family siblings of victims of murder or relations to victims of murder. They don't really have personalities or agency on their own. We are done on Shadowverse with the solo quest here, so there's no reason to do that. On top of which, I also went through Entropy's Abyss and I've cleared out all of these, so theoretically I could try and make another standalone episode going through the story through this whole section, but I kind of don't feel like I want to, considering how, like, Fate's Trigger basically leaves you on this conclusion that the fairy craft character is dead. Like, spoiler for the previous section, but they leave you on that feeling that the first character you ever play as in this game is dead, and then they don't really resolve anything else as far as the other characters. And Entropy's Abyss seems like it is set as kind of an OVA standalone type story that is there just to be a filler episode. OVA is the wrong word there. We need Forestcraft or Swordcraft victories. I don't know how I ended up with a solo for 20, but we'll go ahead and replace that because we don't need to do any more solo stuff. So then that means Forestcraft, Swordcraft, Bloodcraft, and Dragoncraft victories, which that's going to be quite the overlap. Bloodcraft victories in the tournament, or Dragoncraft victories in a tournament. Let's go Dragoncraft. We probably won't get any victories either way. These main characters stand out considerably as you're doing this tournament, and frankly it should just force you to play to use the skins of the Cinderella Girls characters instead. There was a part certainly in the solo mission where that was the case, as you were playing as that character, that character's skin, even though you didn't have that character skin enabled. But I would also say pretty much all the males in Shadowverse always feel like they are not actually well integrated into the Shadowcraft universe. They feel oddly drawn. The ABC Murders has like 50 achievements. Theoretically, if you had read the book before, you probably could get all of the achievements except for 3 of them on the first playthrough, and then the second playthrough is to make 3 mistakes, or make like 6 mistakes in total, which that is a easy thing to do on the second playthrough or second partial playthrough. The game has this ego points system that doesn't seem to really connect directly to an achievement or anything, so you could get a maximum of 600 ego points if you play the game absolutely perfectly the way Perot would play it, or the way it happened in the book. But that's pretty much it. Like, you just get the points and that's it. Like, it doesn't seem to unlock anything else. There's some differences to the game versus the book, where there was a 4th victim in the book. The 4th victim survives. There's more of a connection between the victims in the game, where there's basically no connection to the victims, quite intentionally, in the book, which that was something that I pretty much immediately recognized was likely to be the case, is that there was one true victim, and then the other murders were just distractions. Because the only other option in my mind would have been something like a Silence of the Lambs type Buffalo Bill killer who's really psychotic and just killing people by their alphabetical name. Let's see. Start with that, I guess. The ABC Murders basically lies. It's a fun game. It's way better than Nancy Drew Dossier Resorting to Danger, for instance, which is just like the lowest of the low effort hidden object game experience. Although I would say the ABC Murders also is not particularly going to be suited for very young players, whereas Agatha Nancy Drew was trying to be suited for younger characters, but I don't think it succeeded. But it basically lies. It sets you up at the beginning of that game thinking that it's going to be a moderately open world experience where yeah, they set it up like it's going to be a moderately open world experience where you're walking around from area to area, finding clues that matter, doing observations of different areas, and just kind of none of that is true. The game stops even being a point-and-click adventure near the second half of it and becomes an extremely linear game, more in line with a Telltale game than anything. And it would have been better if it had just been a straight Telltale experience. There's... By the time you hit that back half of the game, you have considerably fewer puzzles, considerably fewer observations. It really feels like a different team completely made the back half of the game, and the front half of the game is... Oh, I did that wrong. Like... Yeah. And so the game gets really bad by the time you're past the 2-hour mark to get a refund on it. And the front half of the game is fairly unconnected and pointless to the back half of the game. There's some connection, but not a lot. And I don't know how much of my criticism of ABC Murders the game is because of the game, as much as it may just be criticisms directly of the book itself. Like, having never read any Agatha Christie,
that's too bad.
It could have been a very faithful recreation of the book. I definitely have to criticize them using the Unity engine poorly. I can't criticize them that they use the Unity engine in general, because I constantly am saying people should use the Unity engine and Unreal Engine, but they did it very poorly, and they were using Resident Evil 1 style cameras in a lot of places. They were using
this wasteland's a fixer-upper.
let's see.
Be gone.
Oh, this thing's more vicious than a 9-headed dragon. This is pure craftsmanship.
There's no way that I'm gonna win here.
Check. Frills, double check.
But yeah, I'd definitely like to see Microids move on to making the next Agatha Christie game and go to more of a flatter 2D animation style, because the 3D, the flat 2D animation on 3D models was kind of pointless. Particularly the environments could have been a flat 2D animation area. They definitely tried to push the technology too far ahead at their own expense of stumbling too much. I did not need to have to try and figure out how to wander around a room just to get to a place. He'd still constantly, like most point and click adventure, had several places where it was just a pixel hunt and I could not literally find it. The number of ego points you can get in a specific area is not told to you, so you never really know if you're done with an area. And so it would have been very nice if there was something in the menu that said, hey, you can collect 5 more ego points. Even that would need to be balanced on just how many you already locked yourself out of. There's no save system, it's just an auto-save system, so you know saves coming to get ego points. So you literally would have to play the game with a step-by-step walkthrough to get all the ego points. But there's no real motivation to play the game a second time, legitimately. And really there shouldn't be. But yeah, in comparison to the Sherlock Holmes games, at the very least, while a lot of the Sherlock Holmes games tend to be somewhat bad, they do tend to churn them out and continue to push forward, whereas Microids did this hard reboot with the ABC Murders, and they so far have yet to put out anything else. So after playing ABC Murders, I started playing Left 4 Dead, and unfortunately, as much as I liked Left 4 Dead, Left 4 Dead 1 definitely highlights to me, and I have locked in on this path, and this will definitely be the way I look at it, that as a single player game, which is all it can really be now, you're not going to get a significant number of new players playing Left 4 Dead, which is who you would need to play with to have fun in Left 4 Dead 1. If you go and play the campaign and you're not an expert, people are going to be upset that you're not an expert, because the only people playing Left 4 Dead on the online play now probably have been playing it for many years straight. So you're in that catch-22 scenario where multiplayer, if there's anybody playing online at all, is only for the pros and not for the new players. And when you have a game like Left 4 Dead that is severely compromised compared to other kinds of first-person horror games, horror shooter games, so that it can be a balanced multiplayer game, that makes a very awkward situation. And that's really what it comes down to, is if I'm looking at Left 4 Dead 1, I'm thinking, how does this compare to Resident Evil 4? And it doesn't compare at all, because there's no RPG elements in Left 4 Dead. The only thing that slightly upgrades is that at a certain point in some of the scenarios, you might get a double shotgun, a slightly upgraded gun, and you might get a double handgun. And that's it. Like, you otherwise don't increase your speed, your defense, your health, nothing like that. The amount of items you can carry, all of that is severely limited. The only thing that improves is you learn the levels, which the levels don't change enough. There might be some scenarios where one path gets blocked off and another path opens up, but for the most part, it's the same path every time. Enemies are, the zombies constantly spawn in Left 4 Dead 1, even the mutated zombies constantly spawn. So, and I'm just playing it on normal, on single player, and it's like, it often becomes a question of, should I just run through an area? And I've only been playing it for like an hour, but it does sometimes feel like you could just run through an area, as long as you don't have a horde of zombies chasing after you, or one of the mutant zombies attacking you. There definitely are some scripted sections, but then there are the AI director, which is just kind of almost the same thing as adaptive difficulty. Will randomize where some enemies are or where pickups are, but that's all that it really changes. And the AI director effectively nullifies the idea of a difficulty setting, because all the difficulty setting is really telling you is that you'll be within a range of difficulties. And once again, scripted encounters in the RE4 are going to be better 99.9% of the time than random events that occur in Left 4 Dead, which the random events are pretty much when you're in any area, zombies can spawn around corners in massive amounts, more than is realistically possible, and they will all rush towards you. And then with your handgun or double handgun, you can still kill them all before they even touch you. With the exception of the witch, every other character in the game is fairly easy to kill, even the other mutants. I would be interested, frankly, if it would have been interesting, just let me put it this way, if some intern at Valve had made a sequel prequel to Left 4 Dead just called Left 1 Dead, where you play as a single player experience, and in that single player experience you're the only character and you survive completely, and then you can at that point have multiple heal kits instead of only being able to hold one. You can hold or more bullets, or upgrade the amount of bullets you can hold. You can hold more than 2 weapons. It's like insane that Left 4 Dead 1 literally doesn't have a weapon wheel when it came out in 2008, which would have been right in the middle of the age of games having weapon wheels. And I think if you were to even compare it to other first-person shooters, you probably would find that it kind of let's see how this would really go out. 2008 FPS list. Let's see if we can get this. List of first-person shooters, Wikipedia. So it's going to be by release date. Yeah, we can sort this on Wikipedia by release dates.
God and demons come together.
Let's see.
The uncharted desert awaits.
Scroll down here to 2008. Yeah, and see, Left 4 Dead is a 13-year-old game now, and it definitely feels like a 13-year-old game, if not older. Also, because it's a Valve game, spent 30 minutes just kind of raving about the same issue over and over that you have to cover with Valve. So much so that I'm experimenting and making an episode 0 where I don't even play the game in the first episode 0 at all. Like, I just put all the ranting, all the setup, all the talk at the front of an episode 0, and then and that way in that way I can, in the next episode, well, this sucks,
Magic is a sound.
but whatever. Yes.
The uncharted desert awaits. Think before you act. Be gone. I'm ready for more. What have here?
So here we have a list on Wikipedia of first-person shooters. You have Left 4 Dead. So let's think. Here, Call of Duty World at War almost certainly had a gun wheel and a lot of RPG elements. Let's see, Fallout 3 is an RPG game. Obviously, it had several weapon selects and RPG elements. Far Cry 2 was out. Crisis Warhead was out. Where, let's see, Rainbow Six Vegas 2 was out. Turok was out. That would have had a weapon wheel. Bioshock 1 would have been out. Yeah, if you compare Bioshock 1 to Left 4 Dead, Bioshock 1 is kind of the exact opposite, same way as Resident Evil 4 is the exact opposite in that there's actual story and dialogue in Bioshock 1 where there's none of that. That's once again compromised and has to be compromised because there's no way to have someone listen to an audio tape or anything, or at least it would take more effort to figure out how to have someone listen to an audio tape while the other 3 players are running and gunning. Inherently, also, when you play Left 4 Dead with real people, you're in this quagmire where you can't go and do the thing you want to do because the thing you want to do is going to take you away from the group and weaken the group. So everybody has to stay clumped together and in the same locations, which makes all of the level fairly linear. Whereas Left 4 Dead probably would work better in more open world areas. You also have Unreal Tournament 3, Umbrella Chronicles, as far as Resident Evil, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. Well, you could talk about Painkiller and Time Shift, but there's no reason to. Undoubtedly, Half-Life inspired because Left 4 Dead is on the Source engine, and that's certainly a problem too, is that if Left 4 Dead wasn't on the Source engine, it probably would have been, in the long run, re-released a few more times. Portal. See, those all came out in 2007, so I don't know how Left 4 Dead and Half-Life 2 Episode 2 and Portal all ended up on the orange box. Is there any other games to even talk about? Like, clearly there was tons of them, because this is just in the previous couple of years. If you went back 4 years previous to Left 4 Dead and just assumed that they had been working on Left 4 Dead.
I'll open the way. Follow behind.
Let's see.
Designs are like unhatched dragon eggs. Eureka! Just as well.
Sin episodes. But yeah, if we were to go back 4 years, maybe that would be more fair. So Fear, I recently covered Fear. Fear has, as a monster shooting game, has a time slowdown mechanic. Yeah, it has maybe not full upgrades, but it has armor and health that's way better than Left 4 Dead. Although maybe the graphics are slightly better in Left 4 Dead than Fear. Interesting. The guy conceded. I still, on my network, I'm not running any quality of service at all. It does seem like that's mostly fixed it. There have been some points where I've noticed slight slowdowns, and definitely some points where when watching Netflix or YouTube, it has to load a little bit more. That being said, a spinning load signal or having to wait a second or two is way more preferable than the constant complete dropped connections that were happening before. So I think I might try to turn QoS on in a very simplified manner, just to not get very specific on it, and just say instead limit the full downloads and upload up to slightly less than what I can get, and that way we can have a little bit of consistency, because clearly there are some times where my ISP has little hiccups, and these little hiccups are when it loads. Here's a game called Geist for the GameCube in 2005. I played that. You play as a ghost that takes over people. Yeah, actually, for somebody who really doesn't like military first-person shooters, there's still plenty of first-person shooter games I played. Not a ton. Like, I'm not gonna say I haven't played any of the Counter-Strike games or any of the Battlefront games, and didn't play Doom 3. Doom 3, I guess 2004. That would have had weapons. That would have had bad lighting, which Left 4 Dead also has bad dark lighting. Escape from Butcher Bay is a famous one. Far Cry 1, certainly. Unreal Tournament 2004. Yeah. Even if they had started Left 4 Dead development in 2003, there would have been enough examples of weapon wheel style games, multiple weapon games. Yeah, even if you go back as far as like Wolfenstein 1, there were multiple weapons to choose from. So the only reason you would have two games, only two guns, and one of those has to be the handgun with infinite bullets, is because you're compromising a game to make it a multiplayer experience.
Blessings upon you.
Which brings me to the whole reason as to why I'm playing Left 4 Dead, is that Back 4 Blood is going to be the spiritual successor to it. And I don't really, off the top of my head, know how that's going to work out. Because it could be Back 4 Blood takes a lot from the asynchronous multiplayer games, where some people will play as the trolls, which are the equivalents to the mutated zombies, and try and defeat people that way. Or it could be that it's always people working together to fight the trolls, and maybe it's going to have a level up system, and maybe some free to play elements or pay to win elements where you can upgrade or get a battle pass or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if some of those concepts make their way into Back 4 Blood. Otherwise, what I really would like to see in Back 4 Blood is way more of a story in the scenarios. Otherwise, it's just going to be this generic experience with multiplayer. I want to see an actual single player experience that makes sense. Anyways,
Fresh manna melons and potion fruit.
so yeah, I'm gonna basically rush through the single player of Left 4 Dead. I'm gonna severely have to think about whether I want to do the developer commentary rushing through Left 4 Dead a second time, and then I'm going to rush through Left 4 Dead 2, and then probably never play it again. I don't think I'm likely to get all the achievements on the game. The concept of playing it over and over again died fairly quickly after the first year or two, I would say. of Left 4 Dead being out there.
Face you head on.
Like, and there definitely was a time when I was playing with friends or random people in Left 4 Dead when it first came out, when the Orange Box first came out. I think I played it on my PS3. It was one of the few games I actually played on the PS3. And I did fairly enjoy it for that one playthrough with random people. But I never had any real desire to go back and play it again. If anything, I probably immediately then swang from that game to something like BioShock, where was much more of a single player story and scripted encounters. Also, there's a problem with Left 4 Dead even when you're playing it in single player, in that you are you are getting shots sniped away from you, and theoretically it's a points game, but it really isn't a points game. But so you're not guaranteed in any playthrough any main maximum number of points, and even the AI people will snipe the shots from you and kill the zombies as soon as you even like point your gun in that general direction. Let's see.
Magic is a sound and a scourge.
Let's see if we can draw another card. Go ahead and evolve here.
There's more than one way to think
And then hit
before you
that.
act.
That's hot.
So yeah, I definitely am gonna have a problem, or a struggle at least, to try and figure out a way to find the fun of Left 4 Dead being such an old game. 13 years old is frankly just a lot. That's what it really just boils down to. It's asking a lot
Magic is a
of the
sound
player. Which that might certainly color my opinion as far as what the next games are that I would want to play, because it is definitely possible that there are a significant number of really old games that I would just spotlight and go, oh, okay, this is too old.
Every shot is a miracle. Though centuries pass, I remember all. Let us conclude.
But I do think that the first-person shooter games might also be the worst category as far as types of games that stand up to time, because there's just that constant iteration and generally a small focus on actual
Behold the fists of immortal supremacy.
let's see. There's a very small focus on actual
Fists of eternal rage.
storyline and quality or long-lasting
Sundering
interest,
Been spotted.
as far as first-person shooters compared to other games, whereas the general story and the general gameplay of something like Final Fantasy 3 or Final Fantasy 1 is still there, and Super Mario Brothers is a different style of game, so Super Mario Bros. World is still as good as it ever was to play, which is to really to say that we thought it was a lot better than it actually was.
You were done
Right.
for.
If this guy had attacked and it had done 4 damage,
I shall give birth to a new world.
I guess that doesn't matter. Alright, well, then we will do this,
Behold the fists of immortal supremacy.
and then we will evolve here,
Time to say goodbye.
Fists of eternal rage.
and then
Sunder all before you.
do that.
The world cycles on.
And do that. And then in the turn.
Forever and ever more.
Probably could have cleared the board of that character too if that
I
mattered,
only
but it
did what
didn't.
I had to.
So is there anything else to talk about? Suppose not, really. That probably didn't make as many recordings as I should. We're kind of moving into the summer time for me, and I'm thinking I'm going to start feeling the heat, and that is going to quickly become the new excuse as far as to why I'm not getting anything done, is that I'm just going to be sweating to death and extremely exhausted and tired, which I'm already very often extremely exhausted and tired, so more of that's not good. So let's just go through the video game news. We were able to do some follow-list cleanup, and I don't think we'll be able to do any of that today, but we'll see. So we have a game here on Steam
This
called
one's for
Wings
my
of Darkness.
The
I
eternal
do need to update
procession
OBS.
beckons.
There's a new version, and my OBS has been crashing in weird ways. So this is a mech shooter, what you would call a 3D shoot 'em up game. It looks interesting enough. It's already on the fall list, but it's out now, $29.99 Japanese only. This might be great, it might be terrible. It doesn't seem like this is a tie-in to any other series. So this would be kind of a good jumping on point. It's not extremely anime in the outfits, at least. The publisher has several other Japanese games here, Legends of Heroes games, but yeah, I think Wings of Darkness is a standalone experience. Let's see. Gamasutra has an article. EA is sunsetting 5 older Need for Speed titles and pulling them from sale. So, Need for Speed Carbon, Undercover, Shift 2, and Unleashed. Shift 2: Unleashed and The Run. Let's see. All 5 games will be removed from the digital marketplaces starting this week, while the in-game storefronts have also been turned off. EA said the online services for each title will remain available until August 31st, after which player will only be able to access the offline features. Need for Speed Rivals and Need for Speed Heat are still available. Well, yeah. That puts me in a kind of good position as a video game critic, because I had no deep desire in my heart to play these Need for Speed games anyways. I might play the most recent one if it's really good, but if they're going to pull them from sale, then there's no reason to give purchasing advice and be a critic on something that's no longer available for purchase. I've done that certainly with the pinball games, but then I had to spend the entire coverage of the pinball game saying, yeah, if you had these games, you might enjoy this, but the truth is you can't buy these games, so it's kind of pointless. And frankly, me covering the pinball arcade games was me covering the actual pinball machines being emulated, more than actually the emulation software. It was 50-50 at least, that.
I'll hit the vanguard.
So yeah, that really just saves me some time.
The bewitching
Well, it does
hour is
always
upon
suck
us.
when we lose content.
New arrival incoming. But make it fashion.
If EA was a company that cared about their products, they would try to do some reboots or take the good elements, if there are good elements in the previous Need for Speed series, and put them in the newer games. Although it would be fairly hard to find anyone arguing that that a specific race or track is so good that it has to be in the next game. Hit that.
Uncharted desert awaits.
And then, should I evolve now?
Be gone.
I'm ready for more. What do we have here?
Everyone needs an afterlife plan.
Interesting. See if that works. Gametsu has an article here. E3 is going to have an awards show set for June 15th. A most anticipated game of E3 and from each publisher and developer, which basically means that they're going to have a kind of Oscars where it's movie makers giving movie makers awards. Editors from IGN, GameSpot, PC Gamer, and Games are on it. Radar. There was this award show that was more independent from pretty much the same group of editors or similar group of editors that happened around the time of E3 or the week before E3, because that was the time that everybody was getting together anyways. By E3 taking it over, it's going to definitely immediately feel like it's missing some impartiality there, and it's going to feel like either whoever pays the most is going to get an award. It's going to be like those car commercials where people just pay to get an award, and then they promote that they've gotten these JD, what are they called, JD something, JD Escher awards, something like that, and those are just made up awards that you just pay for, and you immediately win. There's no competition. I feel like any E3 awards is immediately going to feel like that too. So it seems fairly pointless to even begin to think about doing that, but I guess E3 has nothing better to do with their time, so whatever.
Everyone needs an afterlife plan.
It won't be long now.
I'm ready for more. What do we have here?
Adorable to the end.
I'm giving them all the shadows they would need. I decided to move the Steam games, what's on Steam Twitter page around. That way I'm not in a scenario where I have to go through potentially 30, 40, 50 games on Steam before I can even see the Gamasutra and Gametsu articles. So I can try and bounce this out a little bit more. Here we have a game on Steam called Paradigm Shift, which looks like it's an RPG game, RPG Maker. Free, English only, nothing there of interest. Yeah, I fairly early thought I was not going to win that third victory. Well, I got 2 victories, which, that's something. But at this point, we'll come over here, we'll just play rotation, stick with that, and move on. Here we have a game called Clockwork Calamity in Mushroom World. What will you do if time stopped ticking? That is an incredibly long title. Although I am frankly more critical of people who make one-word titles than people who make entire sentence titles. That's the whole thing with Japanese light novels, is that they've got this running gag in which they try to make the titles longer and longer. This game is $10.55 English only. By the looks of the graphics, it is not worth that. So we'll leave it at that. Let's see. Gametsu says a game called Shibito Majiri launches March 24th, 2022. They have 18 minutes of gameplay footage. So that seems like a lot of gameplay footage here in the middle of an hour and 15-minute long presentation. So this looks like this is probably one of these flatter visual novel horror games, and if they're willing to show 18 minutes, then that probably tells you that it is an incredibly long game. So yeah, we would have to see if that game even comes to the West before we could even begin to establish some hype. Gametsu has an article here. A game called Willie Morgan and the Curse of Bone Town for the Switch launches June 8th. The PlayStation 4 version has not yet been dated. Yeah, I definitely get these announcements. It is kind of a catch-22. Sometimes I'll hear a release date on a game and never have heard of that game before, and then typically more if it's a more Japanese-centric game, I'll have heard of a game dozens of times before they bother to put a release date on it. Yep. This is kind of the 3D art style that I think the ABC Murders were trying to go for, and I think more and more point-and-click adventure games are trying to do this. And maybe this is a commentary on the fact that animators just cannot animate in 2D anymore at all. This definitely looks better than the way they implemented it on the ABC Murders. But there's still always this kind of weird disconnect where the background looks kind of flat hand animated. This game looks like it might be a decent point and click adventure. Of course, I am always a sucker for point and click adventures.
Systems overloaded.
And interesting, I may just get more free victories without the quality of service enabled because of just random slowdowns on both parts. But yeah, most noticeably with the QoS disabled, I've noticed I have had considerably fewer network problems playing Destiny Child and Destiny Child Defense War. So basically any game that connects through an odd port number and an odder protocol seems to struggle
This one's for my family.
with a
Is
QoS
fighting and despair all
setting
you know?
that doesn't understand that. And honestly, there is an argument that I might just have to jump to a full-on like PC, specialized PC to act as a router instead of something that is more hardened and robust to work and something that I wouldn't have to configure as much. I'm not sure I really want to go in that direction though, where I'm running some kind of single unit server rack router and then installing access points for Wi-Fi. I mean, that certainly could have been the way I went. I could have had a router connect to an access point in every single room, because every room in my house is wired to network. But yeah, I didn't think of that at the time, and that still would have been probably expensive at the time, and I set everything up and kind of crazy. Still probably kind of crazy. We have Ghouls and Goblins Resurrection on Steam, which Was it in early access or what? I don't know why it showed up again. Well, regardless, it's rated very positively, and more I want to be led by real people putting their money where their mouth is instead of video game reviewers, because I certainly saw in video game reviews that they kind of were iffy on this. Although maybe this is a different Ghouls and Goblins games than the one I'm thinking about. Did they release like 2 of them at the same time? Well, regardless of whether there's multiple Ghouls and Goblins remakes, this one clearly deserves to be on the wish list. Honestly, I could probably play this game on easy and make it all the way to the end, where any attempt to play the original Ghouls and Goblins or Ghosts and Goblins would be a laughable idea. I would not even begin to think about doing that, because those games are way too hard. Here we have a game on Steam called Move the Window, which looks like it's one of the old-fashioned arcade ladder games, or first-gen platformer might be a way to call it. I did watch a speed run that was about 30 minutes long of the original Prince of Persia game, and yeah, that was very interesting, because that was definitely something that I would have never gotten around to play myself. Like, seeing the speed run now, I could potentially struggle through Prince of Persia 1, but I don't think it really would be worth it. But it is nice to see the game in its entirety, or in a speedrun version of it, to see that you're not really missing that much. I can effectively say that there are bad guys, like maybe one skeleton you deal with, a final bad guy who's kind of nothing, and then there's a princess you save, and then there's a lot of platforms. One of the things that struck me in particular is that there's a lot of places where you have to jump up to break the platform, the crumbling platform above, so that you can climb up. So a lot of people would pretty much be completely confused as to where to go and what to do, and you'd basically need a guide to be able to beat the game. There's less spikes, there's some closing metal chomping gates that I'm sure would cut you in half if you timed to jump through them. There's a lot of running and jumping.
Music to your ears, am I right?
It's no surprise that when you get to the reboots of Prince of Persia, the first reboots, the Sands of Time series, it's no big surprise that that is a considerably different game. You're not playing as a blonde character in an all-white suit like you are in Prince of Persia. You're actually playing as a Middle Eastern looking character. You're doing a lot more 3D parkouring, a lot more fighting and hacking and slashing. It is an obvious generational improvement, even from the original Prince of Persia to the next game called Prince of Persia. And I think we could probably have another generational improvement to the next game of Prince of Persia.
Fresh manna melons and potion fruit.
Do this.
Ooh-wee, this wasteland's a fixer-upper.
Do we want to evolve here?
Be gone.
Oh, this thing's more vicious than a nine-head. This is pure craftsmanship.
Moving on, Game of Citra has an article. A ROM pirate took on Nintendo without a lawyer and gets told to pay $2.1 million in damages. which seems really stupid, unless, of course, the runner of ROM Universe is going for the idea that he can't be unless he was trying to claim that the court didn't have jurisdiction, which that would pretty much be the only way you would get around this, as if you were running a ROM site just in the middle of international waters or something, or in the middle of Russia. That's about the only way I could see you would be able to avoid international treaties covering jurisdictional issues. But he didn't even claim that, so the guy's just an idiot, which it's not surprising, frankly, because
It's justice.
you would have to be a pretty big idiot to
Don't take this personally.
run a ROM site.
Designs are like unhatched dragon eggs.
It won't be long now.
Hatch inspiration. Eureka!
We'll see if this works. Yeah. They were given Nintendo was awarded $35,000 in statutory damages, which relatively is a small number, for each of the 49 copyrighted works uploaded to ROM
Too bad.
Universe, alongside a combined $400,000 in trademark damages. Nintendo was seeking $150,000 for copyright infringement, and as much as $2 million for trademark infringement. So the judge is theoretically throwing him a bone. In the end, I imagine this person will never have anywhere as much as that money, that amount of money, and it is a probably waste of Nintendo's money to have even taken on the case, but suppose they had to do something to defend their trademark.
Behold the fists of immortal supremacy.
Okay.
Sundering fist.
So now all I need to do is one more damage. Gametsu has an article. Alba, A Wildlife Adventure is coming to PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch on June 9th. Let's see, do we have a video of this? I kind of feel like we'd seen this game already. It's kind of like a Pokemon Snap if you were just wandering around taking pictures of regular animals and birds. Yeah, it might be fine. Price is going to play a big factor in something like that. It's already on PC and Apple Arcade. Is it on Steam? Yes, it is. So yeah, on Steam, it's already on my wish list,
I shall give birth.
and it's $16.99, which they probably could use a discount there. But it is overwhelmingly positive also, so. Okay. Deal X.
Magic is a salve and a scourge.
To an enemy follower, then restore X. Why did that not? I guess because I couldn't do any
Thus
damage.
The world ends. The world cycles on.
Let's see. A game called Aztec Forgotten Gods has an extended announcement trailer. This is an action-adventure game due out this fall with Should have 2 L's there. It's probably a little unfair, but I give more slack to Gametsu when they misspell something, because I assume that they are probably English as their second language, since this is such a Japanese-centric website. Yeah, this looks like a big boss fight style game.
Stop!
Although maybe that's not really what it is. No, at least some of it definitely seems to center around the idea of fighting big bosses. And it definitely has more of an Aztec theme to it than what we've seen with other kinds of games where... Let's see, gain a play point. Destroy 1, gain storm, do 3 damage to everybody. Can I do this? No, so I pretty much have to play this.
To a new world.
Yeah, I've pretty much lost.
You're a solid fighter.
Here we have a game on Steam called Republic of Jungle, which looks like it might be a political strategy game. Maybe they're calling it a social deduction game. It's a party game. It's coming soon, English full audio. It says single player, but seems like it is so focused around party game that I don't think I'd want to play this. And then of course you have the political aspect here, as far as, do I want to play a political themed game at all at this point? And I think the answer is probably no. Next we have a game on Steam called Survive Isolation, which obviously looks like an asset flip survival game. Not visually polished, not offering anything new. $1.79 English only. Here we have a game called Directive Bureau Simulator. Detective Bureau Simulator. Which looks like nothing. $4.49, English and Turkish. Here we have DreamWorks Spirits Lucky's Big Adventure. So this is a horse game, but it's based on the DreamWorks Spirit movie series. I think it's a series. I think there's been more than one movie. We do have a male character here, although he looks like he's probably the bad guy. Maybe in the movie there's more to it than not. It seems like there's an actual adventure story going on here. While a lot of this is focused around riding horses, there also seems to be a photography aspect and saving the horses and making paths. This main character seems like a real character instead of just a generic brunette girl. Yeah, there's a lot here. And then you have your circle of female friends. I still feel like this gender segregation is something that needs to be addressed, but I don't know. Maybe for girl games it is all about just girls hanging out with girls. Certainly it's true in the opposite, that there are plenty of instances in which little boys just hang out with little boys, or have in the past, and there's been plenty of games where guys or boys are just hanging out with their same gender. But we probably should all strive to throw in somebody of the opposite gender. Of course, in the new days, just because they present outwardly as female might very well not mean anything to the new generation, or the next generation. Requires a controller. $39.99 is a massive amount of money, though. That's the one caveat. But I do have some high hopes on this. always looking for more kid-friendly games, always looking for more girl-friendly games. I think horse games still are going to get dismissed by a lot of people, though. Plenty of fathers out there who have young daughters who play video games who would say, no, I'd never let them play a horse game. That's ridiculous, and even if that's what the girls want to play.
The uncharted desert awaits.
And fathers probably should fight that knee-jerk reaction. Let's see. Here we have a game on Steam called Memories of the East Coast, which looks like it's mostly a hand-drawn kind of visual novel. Yeah. It's $2.99, English only. Not seeing anything particularly interesting here. If anything, it seems like this person can't draw people, and it's going to be fairly hard to relate to any game
Hey, this wasteland's
if
a
there are no
fixer-upper.
people or no faces to look at.
Well, on to the next project.
Let's see. Gamma Sutra has an article. A new report details the fall of a massive video game cheating ring. If you're interested in reading this, I guess check it out.
You were done for.
This was
Forgotten
a
dreams
cheating ring
gather unto me.
or a cheat maker called Chicken Drumstick. It was busted by the Chinese police in Tencent earlier this year. So yeah, major cheating ring in China. So that's a part to also take
Hey, this
into
wasteland's a
consideration.
fixer-upper. This is pure craftsmanship.
Generally, I'm not particularly concerned with cheating though, because I don't play online much, and because I don't play online much, I don't run into that many cheaters. Honestly, I think there probably is a 20 to 30% of people who feel like there are too many cheaters are actually just bad players, and thus they are losing and then calling everybody who defeats them legitimately a cheater. The Minecraft speedrunner Dream, however, came out and admitted that he cheated, which is ridiculous because it was fairly obvious that he had cheated in that Minecraft speedrun. The numbers and statistics don't lie, and if anything, it highlights how possible it still is even now to just say no, I didn't cheat, and a decent percentage of people will say I agree with or I believe you, even if you have no credibility, and there's no reason for people to believe Dream.
Raging flames have got
People just don't have common sense anymore, and arguably they never had common sense. So yeah, as long as you just deny, you can maintain some level of fandom. But once again, someone cheating at a Minecraft speedrun doesn't really affect me, so I try to stay mostly out of that. I'm thinking I might want to get... I don't think I even purchased the most recent Binding of Isaac game in DLC. But I've been watching Northern Lion play it, and I think it would be possibly an interesting attempt to see where that game has gone. Because like it would be interesting to see if I could even get half of the unlocks starting a new game on the newest version, or if a new player coming into the latest version of Binding of Isaac
You're a solid fighter.
is just doomed to struggle or doomed to stay at whatever level would be really low. Like, because a new game on Binding of Isaac Repentance does still feel like it's mostly the same as a new level on the original Binding of Isaac. It's just that there's a potential to unlock a lot more, but you kind of have to know how to unlock a lot more, which if somebody went into the game not knowing that there was major amounts of unlockables, like tons of unlockable content, then I wouldn't be surprised if there are some people that bounce off of it very quickly. And you could certainly bounce off of Binding of Isaac Repentance very quickly anyways, because it's just such a long game, and maybe you just don't have that time like you would have when the original Binding of Isaac came out, or maybe you just don't want to rehash that idea. So it would be interesting to think about that. There was a game I was thinking about that I potentially could play instead of a collectible card game. Something that was fairly slow, and I was thinking maybe considering of playing that instead of Shadowverse. But I've forgotten what that game was, which that probably indicates that that would have been a bad idea if I can't even maintain the hype for that concept for less than a week. Anyways, moving on, we have a Gamatsu article. The Crisis Remastered Trilogy has been announced for the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Interesting. So, I assume that the Crisis Remastered games are all available already on PC, and maybe not on Steam. And now it's just putting them in the trilogy packaging. That would definitely be how I assume that's going down. This may be the first time that the Crisis Remastered games are available on Xbox One or PS4 or Switch. I definitely should play the Crisis games fairly quickly, because that is a very relevant series of games to play. It's more important to play the Crisis games in my mind than it would be to play, say, the Far Cry games. And definitely I've played a lot weirder games instead of playing more relevant games, which I like to mix it up, certainly. Here we have a game on Steam called Chasing the Wind, which is tagged as a rhythm game. Another one of these bird flying games. It's a little low polygonal. $24.99. Probably a no, but I'll put it on the follow list. Like, at a certain point, a non-VR version, yeah, really, if I think about this, a non-VR version of this game, because this doesn't support VR, at such a high price, that is just a flying game. I don't need to put this on the follow list. That's obviously just a no. I need to raise my standards a little bit, obviously, and I'm constantly trying to do that, but often failing to do that too. Here we have a game on Steam called Elemental, which is a neon top-down twin-stick shooter. $11.99, English only. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Isekai Team, which Isekai is Japanese for another world, which doesn't make any sense when it's a top-down twin-stick shooter. So I have to be kind of careful here, because I might be getting a little drawn by the fact that it has the anime aesthetic, and that's more interesting than most visual aesthetics in a top-down game of any sort, because you're not really going to be seeing too much of that. So there might be something to this. It's early access, $4.79, English, Japanese, Chinese. I want to put this on the follow list just to see the reception, but then I probably wouldn't make it to the wish list, because it's still really just going to be a top-down twin-stick shooter game, and I think that is going to always say no to something like that. So this would do 3 damage, which I think I pretty much have to do.
Go! Go!
Should I drop the oops? My hand slipped.
See you around, Slick.
Let's see. Gamma Sutra has an article here. CD Projekt profits take a hit as Cyberpunk 2077 remains delisted on the PlayStation. You may notice at this point I haven't covered any of the Destructoid articles. That is not because I've already decided I don't want to read Destructoid articles. It is simply a case in which I opened a bunch of the Destructoid tabs before I opened the What's on Steam tabs, so they are all further along on the window bar. So we will get to that eventually. I have nothing so far new to report as far as whether or not Destructoid is going to be my new source. Although I am feeling like I probably will try fairly hard to avoid
Life's a gamble. May as well have fun.
I think I'll try fairly hard to avoid reading their reviews in particular. I really don't need a source of video game reviews from mainstream media at all. It's just not something that helps. I can get the reviews from actual people who play the games on Steam and use those reviews only. And honestly, reading reviews up until this point probably has been just a waste of time. Or at least it feels like it's mostly a waste of time. Gamatsu says the next Battlefield reveal is set for June 9th. So, yeah, a new Battlefield game, I assume. And then Gamatsu says Little Witch Academia VR Broom Racing for the PlayStation VR, Oculus Rift, and Steam VR launches July 15th. Which, hopefully that's better than the last Little Witch Academia game, because honestly I think that there is room for Little Witch Academia to be a kid-friendly game. It does have that problem where there are definitely parents who still wouldn't like a series of witches. But Harry Potter certainly succeeded well enough to show that the percentage of parents who are upset with the idea of witchcraft is pretty much non-relevant now. So yeah. Let's see. 2 damage wouldn't really do anything. So I think I pretty much have to do this. Flash, restore 3 defense, and draw a card.
You're not getting away!
There is a major problem though, certainly with the idea of a VR game targeted to kids for PlayStation VR, Oculus Rift, and Steam VR. None of those setups are cheap. Like, this really is a rich kid's game, and it would make way more sense for it to also be playable without VR. Gametsu has a first-person shooter called Fashion Police Squad for PC launching in 2022, which that seems like Police Squad makes it seem like it's a comedy reference, and Fashion Police makes it seem like it's a comedy. So this guy has like a sewing machine gun. So you're shooting people and what, putting different clothes on them? Yeah. This is a joke game. Yeah. This is a joke game, and it's obviously going to be fairly low effort. I'd have to be fairly deep into the idea of first-person shooter and Doom clones before I think I could suggest playing this. I pretty much would need to play Duke Nukem 3D first and say, okay, this is a parody of Duke Nukem 3D, and that's where you get your enjoyment from this. Otherwise, this whole thing really just comes off as a joke game. Not a terribly low effort joke game, but a joke game nonetheless.
This is where I truly shine.
Mean son of a gun, ain't you?
Alright.
Hey, check this out. I've got all the magic I need. Here goes.
So yeah. That's gonna be an iffy one. Here we have a game on Steam called Obscuria: The World of Nightmares, which is an RPG game from the looks of it, but they've decided to go at a unique art angle with it. Like, this camera angle feels awkward. This camera angle feels fairly awkward. Like, the whole thing seems like it was made by somebody who was trying to do something different but not skilled enough to do anything well while doing something different. This is $3.99 English and Italian. That might explain a lot if this was an Italian developer. So why they would break with the standard camera angles and the standard norm.
Justice himself is speaking.
Still, it does not look like a good game. Next we have a game called Rainbow Laser Disco Dungeon, which looks like it's a Robotron clone. Which, yeah, I don't see any reason why I would want to play a Robotron clone. Because you have this situation where Robotron itself is historically relevant, so you might want to play that. And if you don't care about Robotron, then you should just move to the next generation of top-down twin-stick shooters, things like Smash TV or better.
There is no escape from the apocalypse to come.
Can't evolve. Here we have a game called Operation Tango, which is rated very positively already.
I fire away in the name of justice.
Let's see. It's a cooperative spy adventure game. One's a hacker, one's an agent. It's rated very positively, but it's online co-op only. Full English, full French.
Blast 'em all to
And we can see the trailer here has a bunch of people streaming themselves.
Devour the land! I will be back.
Yeah. I can't put this on the follow list though, because it's an online co-op game. And because it's an online co-op game, your mileage is going to vary drastically as far as, do you have friends? Are you going to have fun with your friends playing this? Are you a YouTube streamer? Are you going to cross collab with another YouTube streamer? Which collabing frankly doesn't work, particularly for video game streamers on YouTube. Next we have a game on Steam called Medieval Hero, which looks like it's a platformer. Doesn't look like it's very polished. $2.39 English, Russian. Yeah, it's just not enough polish there. Seems a little too generic. Let's see, Gamma Sutra has a job listing for a 3D graphics programmer at Pixel Logic in LA, California. They want you to be using ZBrush, but they also want you to have strong C, C++ programming languages, which that's frankly asking a lot for a 3D graphics programmer. Well, maybe not, because maybe you're not drawing. Yeah, I guess you're programming, I was reading this like it was a 3D graphics animator, but if you're programming it, then you're trying to make a program that can use ZBrush images files and put that in a game later. And so that is a programming job, not a animating job, which really highlights how easy it is to confuse a job title. Let's see, Gametsu has a open world survival horror action game, action RPG called Bleak Faith Forsaken, which now has a trailer. This is first I've heard of it. So this could be a Dark Souls clone. That looks like a fairly flat skybox there. That animation looked terrible. So yeah, monsters. Dark Souls game, fighting monsters, big boss fights, kind of open world experience. You seem to go up around towers. How you cross from one tower to the other is questionable. There seems to be some giant boss battles here where you're on these flying dragons that fly through the towers. So that might be the transition point too, from one tower to the other. So yeah. So far, I am not super impressed by that. This is odd from Gamatsu. The King of Fighters 15 has been delayed to Q1 of 2022, which is strange because it was literally just a week earlier that they were promoting and highlighting the King of Fighters 15. In fact, they may very well have announced the King of Fighters 15 coming out at all like a week ago. So to pull the Japanese idea of immediately delaying things because of COVID, or immediately delaying things for some other reason, just seems weird. But if anything, it's kind of like a breath of familiar air, because that certainly is the way have run their businesses. Japanese companies have run their business always, is like early to announce and then very, very frequent and very, very often delays. The Samurai Warriors 5 final trailer is out. It's due out June 24th, the game in Japan, and July 27th in the West. So, yeah. Although the Warriors series in general probably not going to enjoy a decent amount of sales going forward, because the Warriors fandom, last I heard, was very upset that they were basically abandoning one of the previous Warriors games. And these Warriors games are always the same. It's just how many enemies can you get on screen, how many massive area of effects attacks can you do. They can be fun, in my opinion, in moderation, but you don't want to go overboard and end up mashing buttons for your lifetime playing these games. It really is a button mashing game. Let's see.
Witness the fury of my curse.
Ooh-wee, this wasteland's a fixer-upper.
Probably should have.
Be gone.
Yeah, probably should have
Vicious than this is pure craftsmanship.
played this one, but whatever. Here we have a game on Steam called Calabri XR Immersive Art Gallery, which to me just looks like some random 3D elements, maybe in VR. early access, free to play, English only. I guess the price is right, but doesn't look particularly interesting. Here we have a game called Galactic Refugees, which is just a shoot 'em up game with terrible graphics. $7.99 English only, way too expensive.
Well, on to the next
Here we have a game called Adventures with a Girl,
Going into overdrive.
which is an incredibly generic game name. And clearly, this is just
Going into overdrive.
a game trying to sell on the fact that there's a girl there, and that's pretty much it. Maybe it's supposed to be a joke game, and the girl is just constantly going to be afraid or sexualized or something like that. This is $1.79 English and Chinese. Yeah, I could see a Chinese game being like this. That would make some sense. Right. Play this.
The hour of judgment has come.
And then play this.
The uncharted desert awaits.
And then in return.
We're on red alert. Repeat, we're on red alert.
Fairly low effort games we're seeing today. Here we have a game called Cubo, which is a box flipping sliding puzzle game.
Quicksilver barrier.
Single screen Unity game. Not anything of interest. $5.03. Odd that they want that extra 3 cents. English, Spain, Spanish, and Portuguese. What's interesting
My claim to fame.
there is it says Portuguese, not Portuguese-Brazil, whereas so many times up until this point we've seen it say Portuguese Brazil. So has Steam decided to finally just label the language Portuguese as Portuguese and assume that people know that that is the Portuguese in Portuguese Brazil that is being spoken? Or are there literally two categories of Portuguese language that you would use in Portugal, and then there is a language spoken in Portuguese in Brazil? Maybe there are two languages.
Did I overreach myself?
That might very well might be the case. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Gustav Vasa Adventures in the Dollies, which looks kind of like a adventure kind of survival game, and yet it has this unique art style. Man, I hate when this happens. This is bull. I had like 20 health, and in one turn he wins. And I had him down to 1 health. Shadowverse is getting frustrating. I guess I want to put this on the follow list and see if people actually like it and think it's relevant. This is $4.79. So yeah, we'll put it on the following list. And we'll see. Let's see. Gamma Sutra has a blog here. Sony's PlayStation strategy exposed. This is from 6/1/21.
You to the bone.
Which I bet this doesn't really expose anything, and is probably a waste of your time to even think about reading. I think in general we kind of all know what Sony's PlayStation strategy is that they want it
Designs are like unhatched dragon eggs.
to make their money and promote Western games and promote the Western side of Sony Interactive Entertainment. I'm not sure if the overall company of Sony really cares about Sony Interactive Entertainment at all, or has any control over them. And the main Sony corporation may very well be focused on other things. Alright. Play this.
Designs are like unhatched dragon eggs.
And then play this.
Designs are like unhatched dragon eggs.
Go. Gametsu has this open forum number 342. I have not seen any open forums on Gametsu before, so apparently this has been happening where they have decided to promote the fact that they have a forum on their website for off-topic discussion, or this is a post specifically for not off-topic discussion. Like, I suppose I'd have to turn off all the ad blocking and see, yeah, where the comments go here. Yeah, I would assume that this is probably in this discuss widget where the comments would go, because otherwise it doesn't seem like there is a forum per se as far as Gametsu goes. I guess that's fine. I don't know if there's a really great logic to potentially encourage off-topic discussions on your website, but if you want to be mostly anti-censorship, like the rules here are just no nudity, not safe for work content needs to be posted with a spoiler tag, and no trolling or spamming. I mean, those are very reasonable rules for your comments, frankly. Of course, you could always stretch trolling and spamming out, or not safe for work concepts out, to cover a lot of stuff. Let's see. And I think you are probably encouraging free speech when you allow for an open forum. So if I was ever going to have a website of my own, which would be really hard to do with all the video hosting stuff, but would I want comments? Would I want the open forums? Probably, but maybe not. I could certainly see arguments against it. Alright, so we're gonna hit this one.
Fresh manna melons and potion fruit.
And then I have to evolve this one to take out this one.
Hunger is sharper than it. Freshness guaranteed. The dragon is immortal.
Gametsu has a new school RPG by the former Shin Megami Tensei staff has been announced on will be announced on June 10th. This has been updated. What is the update? The game is going to be called Monarch, and a teaser website has been launched. Read more here. So, here we have a title called Monarch. There is, I suppose, a potential major improvement that could happen around the idea of making something that is like Persona but not Persona, does not have the issues of trying to play a Persona game and potentially getting it content ID struck or DMCA'd, because that threat, although it seems like that's never been implemented in IS or Atlas games, I don't remember which, the makers of Persona have said they don't want people streaming past like the first couple hours of the Persona games, even the really old Persona games. And Persona 1 and Persona 2 is not on Steam as far as I know. It's only Persona 3 at most. So if a new company came out and they were more generous to streamers and this would, or even not, this would still be a really great time to jump on to a new new game versus an old game.
Magic is a sound.
See. According to SteamDB, we don't talk about this much, but there's a closed beta test for a game called Babylon's Fall that apparently is coming out. This is fairly too speculative, frankly, though. So I probably shouldn't bother to look at SteamDB. Notice how a lot of SteamDB looks a lot like Steam. And it probably should look fairly different. So one thing I can do is disable the dark mode, and that way it'll jump out to my eyes as looking different. Okay. If I do this, it's the same as doing that. If I do this,
Witness the fury of my curse.
Cycles on.
that.
Hey, this wasteland's a fixer-upper.
It won't be long now.
Oh, this thing's more vicious than a... This is pure craftsmanship.
Best of luck to you.
Let's see. Gamatsu has Blaster Master 03 details Kane, Jennifer, and Metal Attacker original. So, new characters being added to the Blaster Master series. Which it definitely seems like the Blaster Master series is moving at a breakneck pace to become a long-running series when it really isn't that long-running of a series. Here we have a game on Steam just called Physics, which with a name like that you can pretty well tell it's going to be a low-effort game. Let's see, it is $3.99 English full audio. Here we have a game on Steam called Tip Top, which looks like a climbing game. I'm not sure why people like climbing in general, but okay. There might be an arcadey element to this that makes some sense. The interface here looks like it's fairly decent as a concept. It doesn't feel like it's just a co-op clone or a joke game. It's $8.99 English and a bunch of other languages, allegedly full audio in all of them, which probably means none of the climbers say anything. There is a possibility that this is fairly generic a game too, so it may very well not be worth $8.99. But I'm gonna put it on the fall list. I suppose the real question comes down to did the stamina and climbing mechanic in Breath of the Wild actually inspire people to like that style of gameplay, or was it just an annoying thing that happened to be in Breath of the Wild? Let's see. Next we have a game called Loot Slider, where you put cannons down and then they shoot in some number of steps to slide the loot around. So this will fire immediately, that will fire second, that will fire third, that will fire fourth. Otherwise it's mostly a mobile phone puzzle game. $4.99 English only. The question would be, how many levels are there? 168 divided by 3, 6, 12, 18. So you're talking 51, or about maybe 56 levels. That isn't a lot. So I think we pretty much have to skip that one. Man, this heat is just killing me. It really is. Yeah, just driving me nuts. I made some changes trying to be more efficient on my air conditioner, and I chose a very poor time to try and be more efficient. Like, you always want to save money in the summer, but also you don't want to pass out. And yeah, I'm approaching passing out. It is 81 degrees in my room right now, according to the thermometer on my wall, which could be maybe a degree or two off, but not that far off. Anyways, next we have a game on Steam here called Stonefly. I think we had heard about this game before. You play as kind of a bug. It does look like more of a game now, though. Looks more like you're doing some platforming and you're like on top of this or inside this mechanical bug machine that you adjust. So at the first look of it, it looked like nothing, this game, but now that I'm seeing more trailers, it seems like there is something here. It's 1999, English, French, German, and Spanish. So I'll put it on the follow list. So go ahead and do that. And that. Here we have a game called Muscle, or Musical, which is tagged as a rhythm game. Seems like it's saying you can just play any audio from YouTube, and that pretty much means that the actual game probably will not really sync up with whatever audio from YouTube. Also, the graphics here look terrible as far as the menu. If you were going to make a game that could pull anything from YouTube, you needed to have done a much better job at that than what is happening here. A much better job with the UI.
May the forest be at peace.
Hit that.
Let's play.
Hit that. Let's see. Here we have a game called Scald Against the Black Priory. The prologue, which looks like an NES era RPG game. Yeah, this level of graphics, I don't think I could ever say yes to it. Plus, this is a demo, so that's easily dismissed. Alright. Hit that one.
Should have been quicker.
Play that.
Hey, let's play.
Play that.
Hey, let's play.
Hit that.
Should have been quicker.
Actually, should have killed that one, but whatever.
Doing this.
These wheels turn for me. Come at me well.
Hit that.
Damn, I lowballed you.
Help me,
Hit
fairies.
that. We have the Elder Scrolls Online Blackwood now available on Steam, which seems like it's an odd standalone. It's a $40 expansion, or a $50 or $60 or $80 expansion for Elder Scrolls Online. I guess you have to question, this probably was in development before ZeniMax was acquired by Microsoft. Are we going to continue to see content coming out for Elder Scrolls Online? Probably. Is it going to be ridiculously expensive going forward? I would question that. I would suspect the answer there is probably not a yes.
Help me, fairies. I'm gonna rest
Okay. Play this.
Let's play.
And then attack that. And attack that.
Mankind's hatred is a curse.
I needed way more fairies in my hand by the time I played this character to give them all Bane. Here we have a game called Yoku Yuki's Dr. Rat's Revenge, which, yeah, just looks like a simplistic platformer game.
No time for you
$4.49, English, Russian, Japanese.
Whoa, you're strong.
Here we have a game called Starstruck, which looks like a platformer too, with even worse graphics. It's free, English allegedly full audio. Here we have a game called Royal Age Battle of Kings, which looks like it feels somewhat like chess, but really it's more of a group collection of characters in a top-down twin stick
Time for
game,
me to prove myself.
tactical placement game, I would
Forest is angry.
guess is the best way to call it. With this level of graphics though, there might be something to this. It's early access, English full audio, several other languages, $5.99 discounted. Yeah, there might be a bit of an open world concept here where you run around the map to collect more characters. As you collect more characters, that grows your army more, and by growing your army more, you strengthen yourself up and have a better run. And it may very well be a run-based experience. Let's see. Demeter has an article here. Ghost Runner for the PS5 and Xbox Series launches September 28th. Okay. I think it's already available on Steam.
Don't hurt me.
Dark Horse Comics has established Dark Horse Games division, currently in discussions with top studios to create AAA licensed titles. Definitely too little too late. This is something that should have been done by every comic book company 30 years ago. And to some level, it certainly has happened. Saying now is the perfect time to expand into video games is insane. The real question, certainly to go with this though, is let's look up Dark Horse Comics on Wikipedia and let's see
Ranger of the forest at your service.
the titles
They're picking on me.
that they've published, because I bet it's not a lot. Let's see. I'm just gonna skip over things because I could say like the first one on the list is 1001 Nights of Bacchus, which is, yeah, something nobody's heard of. So, and I could say the second one is the 13th Son, S-O-N, and again, not anything that we've noticed. Seems like they have something called 365 Days with Winnie the Pooh, which, okay, that's at least recognizable name. Abe Sapien seems to run. They did The Adventures of Superhero Girl. They did an Aeon Flux comic.
The uncharted desert awaits.
Yeah.
That's
Stay
not
away.
bad.
Ow.
They did some Alien versus Predators. Some of these obviously though would have been licenses. So like the Alien series, I doubt Dark Horse Comics can easily just make a video game or license their comic book of something they licensed in the first place. But yeah, they do have a long-running Aliens versus Predator collection of comics. I bet they don't have any superhero comics at all. I bet that's not what Dark Horse Comics is about.
Violate the garden.
And if they do have any superhero comics, they are going to be particularly particularly unrecognizable superheroes. They have Angel, the spin-off of the Buffy the Vampire series, and Angel and Faith season 10. Gabe Newell, the comic creator of The Sandman, seems to be actually involved in this new TV adaptation that I think they're making for HBO Max. And one of the character playing Death is an African American looking lady. Although maybe she is non-binary. I know one of the characters was being described that way. So she didn't really match the way that she was drawn in the comic. But it's a little bit of a different situation, I suppose, if the creator of the comic is involved with the show and is involved with the casting, and this is who they pick. Because effectively the TV show is just a remaster. So anyways, I can certainly see it from kind of both directions. But I would also say the appearance of Death, is the way she looks in the comics, is very nostalgic, but it is not really critical to the character. Any of the Eternals, including Death, could look like anybody at all. It doesn't matter. They have basically the ability to change their appearance at whim. But yeah, it does still feel very weird to potentially go and think about watching something like that and then to find out that a character that's fairly beloved and that has been cosplayed by thousands upon thousands of people is now going to look very different. On the other hand, that opens up the door to all new kinds of cosplay for a whole new class of people. Not suggesting people do blackface to play Death of the Eternals, but now a lot of the largely excluded African American cosplayers might be able to play another character without being accused of doing whiteface. Although all those accusations, I suppose, are incredibly stupid and ridiculous, because half of the things that are cosplayed are Asian people, so everybody is playing different races. It'll be interesting to see if Gabe Newell sticks with his guns after the whole series comes out, or if he is simply just promoting the new project and standing behind the new project.
I'm not one for pranks. I told you not to rock the boat.
Let's go ahead and hit that.
Wait, that's it?
That.
What do we have here?
And that. Go ahead and play one of these. Alright, getting back. Dark Horse Comics published Barbed Wire, some Batman and Aliens, Batman and Hellboy, Batman and Predators, Batman vs. Predators. Yeah, clearly Dark Horse Comics, at least at some point, was a subsidiary of DC Comics. I think they may very well still be a subsidiary of DC Comics. So then it becomes really a question as to why would Dark Horse Comics themselves need a subcategory and a sub-office to license out to video games instead of Warner Brothers Games, which already exists, which owns DC, doing that. They're the Buffy the Vampire Slayer books, it seems. They have a Call of Duty Black Ops comic they did. Yeah, we're looking for original comics though. And I'm not really seeing it. They have a series called The Comics Greatest World, which seems to be a anthology or a reprint system that they used. It's not World's Greatest Comic, it's Comics Greatest World, and then colon, and then something else. They have some Conan comics, Conan the Barbarian. They have a series called Concrete and Criminal Macabre. If I was gonna just venture a guess, I would assume Dark Horse was the label at one time that would have had all the Constantine and all the magic characters in the DC that later got integrated into the DC universe.
It won't be long now. Hey, let's play. Hey, let's play. Oh no.
Let's see.
Foul forces of darkness. Bow
There's
before
a
my
comic
purpose.
series called The Dirty Pair, which there was an anime called The Dirty Pair. I wonder if they're so connected. Probably not. They have a single comic for Dollhouse, so everything that the maker of Buffy the Vampire Slayer published pretty much as Dark Horse Comics. Which, in all fairness, I have said that the Buffy the Vampire comics and the Buffy the Vampire series probably would be great if it was just rebooted as a video game series. So maybe they finally will pull that off. They have some Ghost in the Shell comics, not that many, about 3. Have a God of War comic. They've definitely licensed a lot of video games to make comics. And see, at this point, I think DC pretty much would not make anything under its DC label that isn't in the DC cinematic universe or the DC universe in general. A lot of Hellboy comics.
Wind, grant them courage.
A couple of Indiana Jones comics. They made Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. Several actually comics here that would make a lot of sense. Indiana Jones and the Arms of the Gold, the Iron Phoenix, Shrine of the Sea Devil. There's major room for improvement as far as
This is where I truly shine.
like, yeah, you could make some kind of Indiana Jones games. We know there is an Indiana Jones game in development, so there is a question, I suppose,
Got you in my
as far as what kind of game that is and who may be very involved with that. Was it an Indiana Jones game or was it a James Bond game? Actually, I think it was a James Bond game that was in development, not an Indiana Jones game. We know there's an Indiana Jones movie in development, so it would make sense that there would be a video game in development or two. They also have several James Bond comics. Dark Horse Comics does. One King Kong comic. See, can I play this, and this?
Hey, let's play. Hey, let's play.
Okay, let's see if this works.
Yeah. You're pretty good.
See, they have a Magic the Gathering comic that they did, but just one. They have the Mask, several Mask comics. They have a Mist comic. Yeah, but it would be really crazy for Dark Horse Comics to make a game based on a comic based on a video game. So this would have to be original content, and we're not really seeing a lot of original content. They have a Neil Gaiman's Murder Mysteries comic. That's the only thing with Neil Gaiman's name in it.
I won!
They have Avatar comics. Yep. This is kind of unfair. I'm self-selecting here and only talking about the ones that are recognizable. They have some Oh My Goddess comics, which Oh My Goddess is an anime, so they reprinted some things. Whereas any game that they actually made would have to be one of the names I don't recognize. They made a Penny Arcade comic in 2015. A lot of these are very old things too. This is a problem with a lot of businesses though, is that their business is completely built around licensing other intellectual property or working with other people. And so when you want to make all the money and not have to cooperate with people that may not want to cooperate with you anymore, you've got years of experience with nothing really to show. They had R.I.P.D., so they made a movie around that. That might work as a game, and I think that is fairly much just theirs. They had a comic called The Secret, which I assume is not based on the Secret book. The book called The Secret. They had Serenity comics, which I assume is based on the movie Serenity. They have a comic called Shadow Lady, but not Shadow Man. So, unless Shadow Lady is completely, unless it would be connected to the Shadow Man game, I assume that's completely disconnected. They have the Sin City series. So that would probably be my target assumption, is that they were going to make a Sin City game, first and foremost. They have some Star Wars comics. This list probably would have been helpful if I could have just filtered it down to originals. They have a decent amount of Star Wars comics, but I seriously doubt any of the Star Wars comics would be allowed to be made into games without it just going through Disney first and foremost.
All I need's an opening and you're toast.
And this is wasting way too much time. They have Starship Troopers, they have The Strain, so yeah, I guess you could make a game based on The Strain. They have some Superman versus aliens and versus Predator type comics. They have Tank Girl. Tank Girl would make a decent video game too. But a lot of these are also very old things that Dark Horse Comics would have had. Titan AE prequel to the movie. The Umbrella Academy. I mean, they might be able to make an Umbrella Academy video game, but it would be a very weird game, certainly. And so, I don't know if that really would work.
Hey, let's play!
One helping of this and it's nighty-night for you.
A fitting end.
Yeah! Yeah!
Good draw.
Another pointless path.
Yeah. They have one Witchblade story, which tells me they're not the people in charge of the Witchblade series. They have the X series. They have Xena Warrior Princess. They have You're Under Arrest. That's another anime comic. They didn't really do a lot there. So yeah. They do have a web series called Critical Role, which maybe they're gonna make a game based on that, the Dungeons and Dragons players. Trying to see if Dark Horse Comics is owned by anybody at this time, and it's fairly difficult to figure that out.
Hey, let's play. Hey, let's play. Hey, let's play.
Right. Clash.
You're done for. I'm so sparkly. Yeah.
Well, that was terrible.
I am a prisoner of this world's whims.
Ow!
Dark Horse Comics has about 5.6% of the market share of the comics, where DC had 32.9. At some point. Yeah. I think we just have to go to their website to get any kind of general idea of what their comics are that they would be thinking about. Yeah. Actually, let's just go back to the front page. I think that's probably about the biggest thought is that these definitely are unrecognizable characters. I've never seen any of these at all. Well, Apex Legends and Hellboy certainly, but yeah. Dark Horse candidates, all in all, I would say, there's just nothing here I recognize at all. And I was fairly into comics. Like, I read almost all of the New 52.
There you are, my little trespasser.
So I should be able to at least recognize some of these characters. And yet I don't at all. So it's basically non-news for them to say, for someone to come out and say that they're making a new division to make video games when their entire IP lineup is nothing. In particular, I think even if you were going to be generous and say, well, maybe they're going to make new games based on new ideas, that still doesn't really make enough sense to be hyped about, because none of the Dark Horse comics so far, all those new ideas haven't succeeded. It's a company that's proven itself for years to basically have no good ideas.
You're strong.
It's the equivalent of if Verizon came out and said they were going to deliver great customer service. It's like, no. They're fairly well known for not giving great customer service. None of the cell phone services and phone services are known for giving great customer service. They can make all the promises they want, but I think they're severely failed to deliver. Anyways, that was a massive waste of time. Here we have a game on Steam called Going Medieval, which, yeah, it looks like it's a medieval survival Stardew Valley type game. Although it does seem like it might have a bit of the dungeon keeper aspect to it. Honestly though, I don't think, like, this kind of does look like Dungeon Keeper. I don't think the Dungeon Keeper is a fun idea if you're just, if you take the devil aspect out of it. The idea of slapping around demons is funny. The idea of potentially slapping around humans, not so much funny, just psychopathic. This is $22.49. The idea of a dominatrix torturing other demons to make them stronger, funny in a demon perspective when done in a cartoony way that Dungeon Keeper did it. The idea of that happening in a medieval time, well then you're just recreating Inquisition. Here we have a game on the Steam called Clutter 1000, which is a match 2 game with just a bunch of pre-bought assets, I'm sure, as far as the visuals. Does not look good. $8.49, English only. Honestly, I feel like something like this would drive me crazy because I'm not very good at finding things anyways, so that would probably be incredibly frustrating. Here we have what looks like a Chinese cell phone game that has been ported to Steam. Yep, nothing interesting to it. $7.99, Chinese only. Here we have a game called Sky Mirror Strolling, which looks like it's nothing. I'm calling it a puzzle flight game. 99 cents. Whole bunch of languages. It's an infinite runner, low effort game is really all it is. Next we have a game on Steam here called Blackstorm, which looks like it's a space shooter. There might be something to this because it's like a pirate ship in space, so that's a little bit funny. It's free to play, but it's online PvP only, so that's not the kind of game I can play and criticize, but it does look interesting, so check it out if you're interested.
Magic is a sound.
Here we have a game on Steam called Balloon Fight, which seems like you shoot things with balloons and then they lift up into the sky. I guess at some point you probably pop balloons too. This looks like this would be something that would be motion sickness inducing, and doesn't really feel like there's a full concept here or actual gameplay here. $3.99, English only. I'm not really seeing any other players. It's single player only, so the game has fight in the name and you're playing against yourself only. Yeah, this is one of those games that really is more of an example of a concept, and barely a concept, being depicted instead of a full game.
Witness the fury of my curse.
Do
Witness the fury of my curse.
in a turn. Here we have a game called Scott Kaboom and the Tomb of Doom, which, catchy name, ugly game. $9.59, English full audio. I am starting to see some of the Destructoid articles, so we can cover them. 343 Industry reminds people to sign up for the upcoming tests. That might be Halo Infinite. It probably is Halo Infinite. Let's see. Guess I can do this and that.
Magic is a sound.
And that and that. And then we'll play this next turn, so we'll go ahead and evolve this here.
Be gone. There's more than one. Think before you
Kill
act.
that.
Big trouble.
Here we have a game on Steam called Dark Pathways, which looks like a platformer.
All magic guns can be kind of
Looks
finicky.
a little too dark, like everything is
Small things
in a black silhouette. $2.39, English only. Here we have a game called Keels, which they're tagging it as a Lemmings game, but really to me it just looks like a platforming game. Not $5.99, English allegedly full audio. If this guy survives, I can win.
My apologies.
Oh. Maybe I can't win now.
Up and running.
Play this.
Behold the fists of immortal supremacy.
Evolve
It
this.
won't be long now.
Fists of eternal rage.
And
Sunder all before you.
do this. And
Sundering
attack.
fist.
Gotta clean up my shop.
Here we have a game on Steam called The Night Before the Deadline, which looks like it's probably a autobiographical joke game. Seems like he's some kind of programmer. There's a giant phoenix penguin. They're calling it a rogue runner in the tags. Doesn't really feel like a runner. $2.39, bunch of languages. I wonder if the joke here is that you walk around and then you just start hallucinating things like crazy. Even at that though, I wonder if there would be enough of a story here to be interesting.
Small things in life.
I'll give this a chance to put on the following list. It's probably nothing though. That would be my guess.
Big trouble now.
There we go.
My raging flames have got you. That twig won't
There
do
we
a
go.
thing.
Let's see. Game of Sutra has an article here. Nintendo wants to turn a factory into a museum called the Nintendo Gallery. Honestly, this should have been done a long time ago. But yeah, it's not a bad idea. Assuming that's really what they're doing, is that they're actually making a museum, and there's no real legitimate reason to suspect that they aren't doing that. But yeah, if they're turning a factory, that there's I suppose a question there as to whether it was a factory they already owned and were using for some other reason, and they've shut down that factory because they don't need it. That wouldn't make a lot of sense though. If they had any possible factories they could spin up to make any Switches, Nintendo would benefit way more by spinning up or repurposing a factory to do that, particularly having a factory in Japan and outside of India, Taiwan, or China would be a great backup amid this chip shortage. So we're now looking for Swordcraft or Forcecraft victories. We'll try Swordcraft. Let's see. Gemetsu says the Spelunker HD Deluxe is coming to the West in Q3 of 2021. Which, okay. Check out this article if you're interested. I'm not that interested in Spelunker, plus I need to hurry up and finish
You
things.
must die.
A Nintendo Direct
looking for a
and a
fight.
Nintendo Treehouse are going to be set for June 15th as part of E3 or around E3. Suppose the question, the Nintendo Direct will feature roughly 40 minutes of information focused exclusively on Switch games. The Treehouse will feature around 3 hours of deep dives around the gameplay for a handful of Switch games. So the Direct is, in their minds, the shorter, abridged presentation, and the Treehouse goes into the deep dives. Here we have a game on Steam called Dawn of Light, which doesn't look terrible as a game. Unfortunately, it's already mixed, so it must play pretty badly. This is probably one of those games that looks good enough to get people to actually play it, and once they actually play it, they realize the flaws there. It's basically a shooter, but where you're a demon throwing rocks instead of shooting. You know, casting spells instead of shooting. A game like this, or gameplay mechanics like this, probably would have worked way better in games like Agony, where it was set in a hell world, instead of just having the game Agony just be a stealth game with no real fighting. Of course, we'll see how Succubus goes when that game comes out, whether it can fix that problem and have more gameplay mechanics. This is free to play, single player only. English and French, full French audio. And I guess that's the problem here, is that this probably was an abandoned game. That would be my guess, is that they got halfway to being able to publish a full game and then ran out of the budget and then just abandoned it. Let's see. Alright, I guess I'll stick to where my mouth is here and not bother to read any reviews. As far as the way Destructoid reviews things anyways, it doesn't give real numbers. It just gives a review score or a review rating. This one got alright for Metopia. But yeah, particularly today, if I can save myself some time not reading the reviews, that's fine. So a news article from Destructoid says EVO announces a new series of community tournaments ahead of EVO 2021 online, which okay. Suppose that's that's fine. Let's see, also Battlefield reveal has been set for June 9th.
She was everything to me.
Yeah, and I guess the question is, are people going to remember the whole don't buy it if you don't like it fiasco of the previous Battlefield, or will hype just magically jump back up for the next Battlefield? I imagine they would really like people to have forgotten about the poor
I go with the wind.
promotion of the previous Battlefield game and get back on the hype train, but I suspect people will have longer memories than that. Here we have a game on Steam called Chased by Darkness, which looks like a dark screenshot game where Baphomet is apparently chasing you. Yep. But I don't even think Baphomet is actually a bad guy in his lore. So that's a odd choice for an enemy. Although Baphomet probably should show up in more games just because he is a distinctive devil-looking monster. Let's see if we do this. if we do this,
Got me feeling hungry.
and then if we do
Let's speed things up.
this,
You're done for.
Armor weapons more. I like. Give me that.
I said
do
slow.
that.
Got to
Unbelievable.
roam and
do
stop.
No.
yeah, I don't see any reason to put Chased by Darkness on the fall list. Here we have something called Mathematic Adventures, which, wow, it's trying to combine first-person shooting in an asset flip game with
You're done
math.
for.
Terrible idea. $34.99. Just straight up money laundering at that point. Ridiculously expensive
Beauty is terrible to behold.
game. Let's see. According to Gamatsu, the Dragon Ball Z Kakarot DLC Trunks the Warrior of Hope launches June 11th. They are taking their sweet time to release the DLC characters that you would expect them to release for Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. Oh, I
Too slow.
just found out that the
Forever.
Demon Slayer
It looks like I'm up.
manga is still going on,
Unbelievable.
which there's really no legitimate
have
reason
here?
for me to think it wasn't still going
Away from
on.
me.
But yeah, it is still going on. It's still very popular. So now would be the time for the Demon Slayer video game to continue to come out and be made.
Never understand.
A dual stick shooter called Clyde the Snail launches for PS4 this summer and later in 2021 for PC. Have we seen
It won't
this?
be long now.
CLID, I assume that's
Pitiful and
Clyde.
wretched I feel.
The heavenly stars.
No, I guess I haven't seen this. It looks intense. It looks like a big Warhammer, massive amount of armor. And it seems to be set in a post-apocalyptic or a trash world, shrunken down, scaled down. There's an intensity here that certainly implies to me that this might be a decent game and not just a generic top-down twin-stick shooter game. But certainly room for me to be wrong too.
Are you ready for trouble?
Stay away from me.
Okay.
It won't be long
This.
now.
I'm ready for more. What do we have here?
Hit that.
I said be quiet.
Stand there, pathetic.
And hit that. Here we have a game called Pearls of the Ocean on Steam, which, yeah, doesn't look like anything. Swim around as a fish, avoid getting eaten or hit through a buzzsaw. Early access $12.99 English and French. That's too expensive.
This ends here.
Here we have a game called Ultra Ninja Soul, which looks like a platformer. It's probably too rough. Yeah, I don't think there's quite enough video game modern gameplay concepts here. This feels like an attempt to recreate an old NES game without really bringing in new concepts and technology to it. This is $5.99 English only. Yeah, just fails to catch my attention. Let's see if this works.
Got a job to do.
Alright. We need to keep this one, and this one.
Do you understand now?
Dad.
Attack this one.
And loyalty is ironclad.
Wall this
It all
one.
ends here.
Harder armor, stronger arm. Steel
and then
yourself.
attack that one.
And loyalty is ironclad.
And then in the turn. have a game on Steam called One Hell of a Trip, which just looks like a dungeon crawler. And once again, they found a way to defeat me. This game, English is not supported. It's 79 cents, Chinese only. So that's an easily dismissed game. Destructoid has an article. Capcom producer heads to Bungie amid rumors of their new hero shooter. We kind of had already heard that he had left. So
You must die.
this is them putting more of a spin on that article. Destructoid. I'm going to have to go through a lot of Destructoid articles in a row here. Tell Me Why is free for Pride Month. So where do you get it for free? Apparently the Xbox. Yeah. Xbox Online seems to be the only place you can get it for free, though. I don't think you can get it anywhere else for free. I'll check on that. We still, at least it seems to me, have a significant amount of people in the United States that take Pride Month as an opportunity to come out as bigoted. Whereas I would think that the LGBTQ plus community overall is going in the right direction, not trying to come off as obnoxious or overly pushy, depending on whether or not you're pro or anti-LGBT. Whereas there definitely is a generation of LGBT people who kind of find the gay pride parades where everybody's in like fetish wear a little gauche at this point, a little extreme, and the we want to be normal. Normal's the wrong word to use, but we want to be just your regular families that have kids and raise them alongside your families and share 99.9% of the same values and beliefs and actions is the way that they are going, much more than saying, hey, we want to be these on the outskirt fetishists who are just having wild orgies all the time. And there definitely is a subset of people that still want to do that. Both straight people often want to do that too, but we usually don't let them run the parades.
Is that how you treat a lady?
If anything, as a Lego fan, I would say that there's like Lego's doing a everyone is awesome pro LGBTQIA plus product, and I can't find a reason to buy it because it's so monotone in its colors. It's rainbow minifigs with rainbow background that, like, I get the idea, but aesthetically the rainbow is not a good color palette because it's pretty much every color palette. And art, this is an odd argument to make, but art is about having 3 or 4 tones or colors in your palette, not having every color in your palette. And so that set does not mix well with any other Lego set. It would just be something that could go on the shelf, and even on the shelf as a standalone display thing, it still wouldn't look particularly good. So here's my big suggestion, feedback to the LGBTQIA community. Drop the rainbow and get a better concept, a better avatar, better color palette logo. It's a little too much. They probably should still use the rainbow colors, but they should probably bend it into like a ribbon. So like there were a rainbow colored ribbon, like other kinds of ribbons, or a bit of a logo. Like the peace symbol was a nuclear de-escalation logo originally, so maybe something there. Somebody should take some effort to make some more logos that are not so generic as just a rainbow.
The uncharted desert awaits.
Like, if I was to throw out an idea, you could probably take the like Greek symbol for male and female and
What do we have here?
and then overlap them and then add like a non-binary third symbol, and that would probably make a nice logo to say everyone was included, or and that's gender identity, which covers half of the LGBTQIA, and then you would probably need to add some colors around that symbol, and that's what you probably would throw in the rainbow, is just different colored circles around to cover sexual preferences.
What do we have here?
And that might include enough people to make people happy.
Questioning God's design is meaningless. It's making me wild. Neither heaven nor earth shall be your refuge.
See, tell me why. Here we go. Tell me why on Steam is 100% off. Alright, well, there's literally no reason not to get this game. It's rated 84% positive. So yeah. Add that to Steam. That's easy enough to do. And at some point, probably months and months from now, if not years and years from now, I'll have completely forgotten that I got that game for free and end up playing it in the same way I would have played it if I purchased it. Like I honestly try to remember if I get a game for free, just in case that might affect my reviews, but honestly I don't think it does. I think most people would probably say that, so I could easily have a blind spot there, but you know, when you have such a bad memory that you don't remember what you paid for most games anyways, the only time I really consider the price of a game is when I'm purchasing it, not when I'm playing it. Which definitely means that my perception of the value of a game when I buy it is from the number of reviews and first impressions, which is always true when buying anything, I suppose. You can't get something on loan and then pay for it later if you feel like it's worth it. You can ask for a refund, I suppose, but I don't ever bother to do that.
You'll be my victim today.
And honestly, I've yet to run into a game that I think deserves to be refunded on Steam.
No one gets past me.
Though I said,
it would have
I
to
will rise again.
it would have to be a particularly bad game if it deserved to be
You are done for.
refunded. Something that just did not run.
I'll save you all. No one
Something
gets
that
past me.
it was obvious would never run.
Too slow.
That hurts!
Let's see, moving on. Destructoid has an article here. Destiny 2 needed a win, and it got it with the Vault of Glass re-release.
Not a soul without sin.
They cut Destiny 2 content, apparently.
Punish the wicked.
Most people not talking about Destiny 2 these days. Here we have a game on Steam called Plains Journey, which looks like it's maybe a Chinese MMO, maybe just an asset flip MMO. $7.99, Chinese only.
I need more fear, more terror.
Got a job to do.
Okay. So, select 3 enemy cards and play, and destroy all enemy followers in play, which means you select this because it won't be destroyed anyways. You select this and you select this, then that destroys those 2, and then you attack that,
Loyalty is ironclad.
and then just end the turn there.
Loyalty is ironclad.
Here we have a game on Steam called Our Beautiful Earth, which just looks like it's a hidden object game with some photos added in. $6.99, bunch of languages.
An exemplary battle.
Here we have a game called The Way Home, which claims to be a driving game. Seems to me like it's probably not really anything at all. Yeah, seems like it's probably a joke game, if anything. $1.19, English only. Yeah, we need to get through a lot of these Destructoid articles. Yeah, Destructoid has the same article. E3 2021 will host an awards show on its final day.
You must
They have an article here. Mass Effect Legendary Edition's photo modes lets me see the trilogy in a new way. Which, I guess this is pretty much just an opinion piece. It is talking about a feature in the game though, so it's not just a random opinion piece talking about a random thing. So I'll give them that much credit. They also have the King of Fighters 15 pushing back the release. Which they have an article here, Destructoid does. Biomutant will now let you muzzle the narrator thanks to a major update. Which I guess the narrator was very annoying from what I'd heard. Does the major update fix any of the other problems with the game? Or is the game still kind of boring and grindy? Because those are the bigger questions. Destructoid says the Burning Crusade Classic with its reduced cloning fees is live now.
do not seek what
So-
is not there.
This is part of World of Warcraft Classic. Why do you need to clone in World of Warcraft? I guess that's whenever your character dies, you can clone them to bring them back to life. Would be my assumption as to what the cloning fees are all about. I still feel like you pretty much are wasting your life though if you're playing World of Warcraft these days. No Man's Sky Prisms update adds a rideable flying creatures, lighting improvements, and more. You're in this weird position, particularly with No Man's Sky, in that it probably has added enough content to justify playing and buying that game, but it's still adding more content, so you're never really well suited to decide and to pull the trigger and actually play it, because do I want to play No Man's Sky while they're still adding content? No, I would want to play it once at most, and I'd want to see all content available. It's just too long of a game compared to like Minecraft, where Minecraft never really has an end. No Man's Sky kind of does have an end. And I think it tried very hard to not have an end, but ended up having one regardless.
I go with the wind. Got to roam in style.
A fitting end.
Too slow.
Here we have a game on Steam called Direct Shot, which just looks like it's a first-person shooter game. Nothing really. Early access, free-to-play, English, Russian. They're saying it's similar to Counter-Strike,
Punishment awaits.
which I should play Counter-Strike after playing Left 4 Dead for at least one game, just to see what 8 years difference of the source engine means.
I devote my entire being to the cause.
Because that would be the ultimate irony, is that I went and played Counter-Strike 1 after playing Left 4 Dead 1 and found that it did have a weapon wheel and did have a whole bunch of gameplay mechanics that are missing from Left 4 Dead 1. Or at least feel missing.
Are you ready for true combat? Hot!
Too slow.
You wouldn't.
Next we have a game on Steam here called War Factory, which doesn't look like anything. Just seems like it's a low polygon sim factory manager game. $13.49 English, allegedly full audio. That's too expensive. Here we have a Gamma Sutra article. Take-Two has acquired top 11 developer Nordeus for $378 million deal. I don't know what Nordeus is though. It's a Serbia-based mobile studio.
I need more fear, more terror.
Got a job to do.
Hold this one, and this one.
How could you not understand?
And then in the turn.
Loyalty is ironclad.
See, Gametsu says the new God of War title has been delayed to 2022 and it adds a PS4 version. This is taking a playbook out of Japanese companies. The Santa Monica studio developed the game, is immediately announcing and then immediately delaying the game. Ridiculous. Yeah, we have a game on Steam called Arkham 9 Alien Defense, which looks like it might be a tower defense game. Whatever it is, it's hideous. $4.99 English only. Let's see. This.
The dawn shines like a beacon of hope.
Evolve.
You're done for. Dawn always
We
prevails.
won't give
Dawn
him
is
an inch.
dawn is upon us.
And then Evolve lets us attack here or attack here.
Did I not pray hard enough?
Guess we'll go and play that. Next we have a game on Steam called Armored, where you're playing in a tank. I kind of like the cutesy graphics, but yeah, this just looks like a mobile phone game. $1.19 English only. Here we have a game called Bunny Factory, where it's a bunny in a mech suit, picking up boxes and putting them down, maybe in some kind of puzzle game. Regardless, it doesn't seem like there's really an experience here I want to play. Solve 3D puzzles alone or with friends. Honestly, I think you're just moving boxes. $8.19. Suppose it is possible that this is a decent puzzle game, so I'm going to give it a follow because I am a sucker for like Portal. So there might be something to this idea, but I bet there isn't actually anything to it.
This town eats good folk for breakfast. This town eats good folk for breakfast.
Okay. A 5-6
Hands up!
would kill one of these guys.
It won't be long now.
I ain't dead yet. Hands up! You crusty horseshoe. Hands up!
You
But I'm
are
gonna
forgiven.
die anyways.
You crusty horseshoe.
Yep. Let's see. Destructoid Tencent is reportedly being sued for an inappropriate honor of kings. Inappropriate content in its flagship mobile title Honor of Kings. I assume that this is it's inappropriate character clothing, disrespectful portrayal of historical figures, and a lack for respect for culture. So, yeah. This is the censorship starting to go in a direction in China that we figured they probably would get to this point, or I figured they'd probably get to this point, but they were originally much more interested in just putting China in a good light and promoting the Chinese Communist Party first and foremost. But now they're starting to get into the nitty-gritty, and the censorship will just continue. It really is just true. The sliding slope argument, particularly in censorship, is true. I mean, I'm not even going to bother to have a conversation with somebody that tries to argue it isn't. Censorship in all forms becomes a sliding slope. People don't become less censorious once they do it once.
You must die. Mother, father.
Twitter didn't magically become less censorious after they started kicking out a bunch of right-wing people. They became more, and they started to go into bigger details. I've personally noted that several joke pictures that I've posted, meme pictures and things, that really have nothing to do with politics at all, like, no, they absolutely have nothing to do with politics at all, have been censored from Facebook. And these are posts that were posted years ago and left alone for years, so it shows that from Facebook's perspective, they are scanning every single old post and removing and warning people. Yeah, I put up like a picture of one of the characters from Arrested Development, and so that's very mainstream comedy joke picture, and they had a problem with it.
He's feeling hungry.
Let's speed things up. Too slow. Too slow.
You're mean.
See, I think it was the character's name is Tobias, the psychologist that wants to be the actor character. Yeah. Moving on, Gamasutra has an article. Nintendo teases a software news at E3 2021. No mention of the rumored new hardware. Which I suppose that is a different way to present that they announced a Nintendo Direct and a Nintendo Treehouse. But that's a fairly dishonest way to announce that too. Because you are definitely trying to shift the narrative to talk about the rumored new Switch Pro is, I think, what they're gonna allegedly call it. because that is not the actual bit of news that should have been talked about. Gamma Sutra also has Dark Horse Comics, opens up a video game division, wants to work with top studios.
Literally.
Like everybody wants to work with top studios.
No, literally.
Here we have a game on Steam called Anima Reign of Darkness. Looks like a Diablo clone, unfortunately. It's already mixed at 65%. $10.79, English only. Let's see if we can see the reviews. It's Diablo 2, except it isn't nearly as good as Diablo 2. It's playable, though the targeting is a bit off. I'd say 4 out of 10. Grim Dawn is better. Path of Exile is still better. It's better still. Also, at least it's cheap. Yeah. See, a apathetic Diablo 2 clone is not really worth playing. And when they say it's Diablo 2, like, a lot of this looks very, very much like they just traced over and redrew things from Diablo 2. Honestly, if I'm gonna play a Diablo type clone 2, also, I want it to have some sort of story, even if the story is ridiculous and stupid.
Are you worth your weight in gold?
I still want it to have some sort of story.
Can I haunt you too?
Too slow.
So yeah, that's not gonna make it to the fall list. Next we have a game on Steam called Raise 2070,
I'm coming for
which
you.
looks like it's a first-person shooter with like robots and kind of nothing else. $8.99, allegedly full audio in several languages it doesn't even have interfaces for. Yep.
The uncharted desert awaits.
And then play that.
The uncharted desert awaits.
And then attack that. See. Gametsu has Horizon Forbidden West on track for a holiday release, but that isn't quite certain yet. There also was a bit of a Twitter dust-up in which what may have just been an unfortunate angle of Aloy's face was shown, and her face felt fairly masculine. Like, if you hide her hair or remove the hair from the model, it looked like a fairly masculine, fat-faced male more than it looked like even a fat-faced female. Either way, it didn't look good. And part of that is probably the lighting system that they have around her that still needs some polish. But also, I think that there might be some room for improvement as far as her feminine face. The actress, the model whose face Alloy is based off of, looks very feminine and very nice. So there's no real reason that the video game depiction shouldn't look feminine and nice. Otherwise, also, of course, the accusation is that this is some extreme SJW push towards anti-feminization, which there are definitely some people out there, SJWs out there that are like that, that are like, fat is beautiful, skinny is ugly, masculine and butch is beautiful, feminine is ugly, females can't show shouldn't show their face or show their legs or their beauty or their cleavage, which, yeah, there's a whole bunch of nonsense that goes in that direction. On the other hand, like, if they did make a character that was butch, that'd be fine. I mean, we definitely had some butch characters in the Borderlands series. I didn't immediately think anything of it. The biggest problem in this instance would be Alloy already has the way she looks now. From the first game, it would be a little weird to change her appearance in the second game. But maybe you could explain that. It may be throughout the journey to the west, she got more food. She was able to not have to walk or fight or hunt as much. She's gotten a little bit older. It wouldn't be unheard of for people's face to change. In the end of the day, you are going to spend most of your time looking at Alloy more like this than even seeing her head on. So unless the graphics just completely take you out of the game in every single cutscene, you'll be fine. Remember when we played The Witcher 3, Geralt of Rivia was a pretty hideous looking scarred up man who had a certain gruffness to him that was appealing, but I mean, he certainly wasn't a pretty faced male for sure. Well, at this point, I am done with all the daily quests. I don't know how I pulled that one off, but whatever. Next we have a game on Steam called Nemesis Mysterious Journey 3 Prologue, which looks like it might be an actual game, kind of like a Myst clone game. The question I suppose to ask though is, instead of looking at the demo of the game, the third game, we should look to see if we can find the first and second game on Steam. It's from the same publisher as Lust from Darkness and Car Mechanic. No. I don't see the two previous games here. So, I am a big sucker for Myst games, so I'll put the main game on the fall list. But there will be certainly some level of concern around the idea of playing the third game in a series and skipping the first two. Destructoid has an article. Crisis Remastered Trilogy will lay waste to PC and consoles this fall. Which this is basically just the announcement that it's coming out. Interesting. Notice how this takes up more space, so let's just get rid of the post tags. Well, I can see the beginning of the end, so we theoretically should be able to wrap this up fairly quickly. I already talked about that. Susan Wojcicki, the CEO of YouTube, retweeted this Fortune article inside the ad world of YouTube. Just Alphabet's online video service has grown from tween pastime to one of the world's largest sellers of digital advertising. So, yep. That probably highlights where the CEO of YouTube is focused on, is selling ads. And at a certain level, that is where they should be focused on. But on the other level, they seem to be focused on selling ads for themselves and no one else, and to the detriment of all of society in the same breath. We haven't heard anything new about the theoretical idea that YouTube claims they can run ads on your content even if they don't pay you, which people would be very upset if that started happening. But I suspect they would like to slowly boil the frog and start doing things like that. Destructoid has an article here. Fire up your PS3. It just received a new system update. Let's see. This is a 60th update. It's probably an update just to update Blu-ray licenses or something like that. I probably should turn on my PS3 just to see if it even runs. Right, do we want to do this now? I think we've got no choice.
My blade is your salvation.
We gotta be careful, so we'll do that.
Nowhere to run. I'm ready for more.
Yeah, my DVD Blu-ray collection has kind of become almost an albatross. Like I can't really and don't really want to get rid of it, but there is also a highly low probability that I would ever bother to put a DVD in my PS3 to play it, or Blu-ray into my PS3 to play it and watch it.
Let judgment fall.
And with streaming services getting 90% of everything, or giving enough entertainment so that you don't miss the things you can't see, there's very little that to keep that needs to really be on DVD or Blu-ray anymore. If it weren't for the fact that most of my DVDs and Blu-rays are anime based, almost all of it could be given away with no loss. Let's see. Here we have a game on Steam called Tennis Elbow Manager, and the trailer makes it feel like you're actually playing tennis, but I think it's all scripted animations. I think you don't actually play tennis at all. You just watch maybe random animations. This is $26.99. Whole bunch of languages. Yeah, you don't get to play tennis in this game. And even if you do, it's not going to be a good experience. Excuse me. This one.
It was so lonely.
This one. Do we want to evolve? We can't evolve anyways. Starting to wear out my voice, so now would be a decent time to try and finish.
Destroy the world artifacts.
The developers of Days Gone, Bin Studios, has put out a long picture text here. Basically, they say they're expanding Bin Studio portfolio with a brand new IP. So, yep. Days Gone. I was just thinking about Days Gone for the fact that Left 4 Dead 1 probably was the maximum and last point in which it would have made sense to try and sell a game based on the fact that it has a let's go ahead and do this.
I'm already a proper lady, you know. It was so lonely.
Yeah. Sorry. I wandered off there mentally. Yeah, Left 4 Dead was probably about the last time that they had added enough zombies where having a large horde of zombies chasing after you meant something. By the time you get to the the mall games where zombies are showing up in the hundreds or thousands in groups. It really didn't matter. Days Gone definitely tried to sell on the idea of a massive horde of zombies attacking you, and that sales pitch was pretty much non-existent at that point. It just did not make any sense.
This is where I truly shine. So quick.
Okay.
Is that how you treat a lady?
Because Ben Studio doesn't bother to say, isn't going to put out any other information, them announcing a new game really doesn't mean anything. It's basically non-news. Destructoid has an article here. The K-pop group Twice's Nintendo collab causes confusion on Twitter. Twice fans felt special, but games said "Cry for Me." I wonder if these are both titles of their songs. That'd be my guess. Okay, well, how do we want to play this? If I do this, it does 4 damage. What does this one do? 2 damage to the enemy leader. Heal here.
Is that how you treat
Attack
a lady?
here. Heal
This
here.
is where I truly shine.
So do we want to attack this turn? Or do we want to save this turn? I think we save this turn. Let's see. Trying to figure out really what the collab was. In March of 2021, Twice fans were delighted to see the girls featured in some ads for the Nintendo Switch. These, I assume, are Korean ads. Featured games like Ring Fit Adventure, Animal Crossing New Horizons, and Miitopia.
Destroy you all.
They post it with the phrase "Twice" in Nintendo. Twice fans known as Once got it trending almost immediately. From that side of things, it looked like the stands were just happy to see the girls doing some fun promo.
This is not the end.
So what's the problem? Oh, they thought that this was an announcement for a new generation Switch, and thus the confusion there. Okay, well, it really does feel like Twitter is just a whirlwind for people getting upset about nothing in a lot of cases. And or Twitter is a place where a bunch of websites like Destructoid try to pretend like there's drama when it really is just 4 or 5 people that are upset.
This one's for my family.
Which is hardly major drama.
Activate. Enhance. Fire.
Moving on, Destructoid has an article here. Applesauce Apartments is an experimental narrative about capitalism, maybe. Interesting looking game. It's on itch.io. See, maybe that's news, maybe that isn't. Like, I don't cover games that aren't on Steam, so that might be an idea there, but maybe not. Here we have a game on Steam called Jeff 16, which just looks like a asset flip fighter jet game, which we don't see a lot of those. Seems like you're fighting against buildings and shooting the buildings themselves more than fighting against other planes. This is $5.39 English full audio, allegedly.
Designs are like unhatched dragon eggs.
We basically haven't had a single good game in this whole list today. Here we have a game called Save Me Saikuya-san, which looks like a visual novel. Doesn't look particularly good. Let's look at the price. $2.69. It's an unofficial Toho project game. It's permitted under the Toho Project Derivative Works guidelines. English only. Yeah, and see, at that level, that really probably highlights that half of the Toho Project games are derivative works that are just allowed to be made as fan projects. And it's a weird business plan, certainly, to have this phrase Toho Project and have that become extremely prevalent as far as Steam games listed, but not really make any sense as having a consistent narrative or style of game or even idea or concept around what a Toho game would be.
I'll face you head on.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Zombie, XOMBE, which is a different way to spell zombie. It is a fairly grotesque monsters. Unfortunately, some of the screenshots aren't even right, and if you look in the background, it seems fairly obvious that this is just an asset flip location, because I've seen this location before. Yep. This is 99 cents English only. Let's see. Let's give me 5 defense. No.
My raging flames have got your back. That twig won't do a thing.
Next, we have a game on Steam called The Chronicler, which looks just like a ugly RPG game. $6.99 English only.
Coming at you.
Let's see.
You're
Game of Citra has an article. Blitworks developer have joined Lorraine Studios at the new Barcelona studio.
It's the small things in life.
So it was a port studio, now working for Baldur's Gate developer Lorraine Studio. Okay. So they acqui-hired some people, basically. Hit that,
fresh manna melons and potion fruit.
and then hit that.
The uncharted desert awaits.
And then try and protect ourselves. See. Gameloft Australia is looking for a lead game designer in Brisbane, Australia, if that interests you. We're in the Gamma Sutra. Here we have a game on Steam called Super Hunchback, which feels like this is maybe a modded ROM of a Disney Hunchback of Notre Dame game. If it isn't, then somebody decided to make a pretty awful Game Boy game and put it on Steam for really no reason. Although this is being published by Pico Interactive, so maybe this actually was a game that was supposed to be based on the Hunchback of Notre Dame or the Disney movie, but they didn't have the license, so they just originally, when that movie came out, released it. Regardless, a lot of the Pico interactive games are not worth their price. $6.39. Yeah, not worth it. Not a relevant game. Next, we have a game called Overboard. This is a murder mystery, I think maybe social deduction game. It's from the developers of 80 Days and Heaven's Vault. Did Heaven's Vault ever get well received? It's single player only, so it can't be a social deduction. English full audio. That deserves a follow. But I would like to see, like, 80 Days here is on my wish list because, and it is 92% positive. Heaven's Vault is 91% positive, so this did come out and people finally did like it. Yeah. I think people really were expecting this to be a much bigger game than it really is. And when people got over that to realize what it really was, that fixed a lot of the problems as far as negative reviews. Although in all fairness, at the very beginning here, it is saying open world and or open universe, and it isn't so much that. It's a kind of unique language game. And so you have to look at it from that perspective. It's been as low as $9.99, but Heaven's Vault is $24.99 right now. At $9.99, it's a decent price. At $25, it is not. Let's see. Gamma Citra has an article here. Riot Games plans to join in on the mobile first-person shooter boom with a mobile version of Valorant. Which, okay. That seems understandable. Here we have a game on Steam called Why Pizza, which looks like it is a joke troll platforming game. $13.29, too expensive. English only. Yeah, I'm really only willing to go as far as like Binding of Isaac or The Game Fingered as far as joke games. There has to be some relatively high level of skill in actual good gameplay in a game if you're gonna go with joke or trolly graphics. Alright, well, guess I have to play that now.
Thus the world
And then we'll hit that. Which, maybe I should have hit that, but whatever. Next, we have a game on Steam called Squeakers 2, which seems like you're playing as a pig, moving blocks around, trying to get maybe from point A to point B. As best as I can tell, that's what it is. I don't think that's even right. It's $1.79, English only. Build a way to climb higher and higher. It's kind of like that game. Ooh, I've forgotten the name of that game. Where the guy is in his underwear and he grows horns in his nightmares and he's climbing to the top always with some like giant baby creatures or other kinds of creatures chasing after you. Catherine. The name of the game is Catherine. Yeah, it's kind of like Catherine. It's such a mundane name for such a weird looking game. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Sludge Life, which I think we'd already seen this one, and I think it's more of a troll game. I don't think I need to put it on the follow list. $12.74. I don't know if the reason why I'm seeing some of these games a second or third time is because they're coming in and out of being early access, or if what's on Steam program is just glitchy.
Cycles on.
It could be several different reasons. Here we have a game on Steam called Infiltration Alone in Combat, which this looks like a PS2 level of 3D modeling, unfortunately. The concept's not terrible. Male, female character selection in combat. Not a terrible idea, or working together. But we're not seeing any enemies, we're not really seeing a story here. It seems like all they're showing off is that you have two characters and they run around through asset flipped areas that look a little bit better polished than most areas. But I'm not seeing a single enemy at all. Something off in the far distance. Let's hit this. Evolve. And smack.
I'm so useless.
Here we have a game on Steam called Haiki, Haiki, which looks like almost haiku. Seems to be a color-changing platformer to open different gates, where that is a slight interesting switch on a standard frustration platformer. It's still, at its core, though, a frustration platformer, so it's just not for me. This is early access, $9.99. Whole bunch of languages. Next, after that, we have Hoko Life. It's almost like they're going alphabetical at this point, which this looks like it is. I guess this Stardew Valley type clone. Maybe a little less focused on the farming aspect, which. Maybe I'd be able to play a game like this. We can see it's mostly positive already. It's early access. Whole bunch of languages, third-party EULA. Yeah. If you can just take the farming aspect out and maybe some of the dating aspect out of a game, I might be able to find some fun in a Stardew Valley style concept. Maybe I wouldn't though, too, because this may also just not be the style of game I like to play, where I'm just wandering around decorating and doing nothing else. This is from Team 17, the developers of the Worm series long ago. Well, this.
The uncharted desert awaits.
And this.
Ooh-wee, this wasteland's a fixer-upper.
And then waiting.
This is pure craftsmanship.
What would be the two cards we could play? 10 damage, 5 damage.
I'll open the way. You follow behind.
Destructoid has the E3 press conference and stream schedule, if you're interested. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to bother to watch any of these press conferences live. Like, that's just going to be a huge waste of time. E3, in general, is likely to be a fairly large waste of time. We have about a week before it happens. But yeah. Here we have on Steam Haunted Hotel Phoenix Collector's Edition, which is just a Big Fish Games hidden object game. I kind of would like to see the animators for Big Fish Games take on some of the Nancy Drew, Agatha Christie stories, because I think their flat 2D animations look a lot better than the fairly inconsistent Nancy Drew Dossier games. But who knows, by the time I get to the most latest Nancy Drew game, it might be particularly great. So I probably, during the summer sale, should buy the first Nancy Drew game in the main series, and then the latest. This is $8.99, which is actually fairly cheap compared to Big Fish games, which tend to try and sell them for $12.99. Got it.
Behold the fists of immortal sundering fist!
This is grave.
Here we have a game on Steam called Warhammer Quest: The Silver Tower, which
I only did what I had
feels
to.
like it's not a Warhammer 40k game, to say the very least. But it's a Warhammer game, unless they're not part of the Warhammer series. This is free to play with in-app purchases and single player. Well, I think I'll put this on the follow list. No, this is one of these free to play daily games. I don't see a reason why I would play it. The biggest problem with this idea of getting into a free to play game for the Warhammer series is that the Warhammer series, in its form of video games, needs to actually be good, and it isn't. It just isn't. There's way more bad Warhammer games than there are good Warhammer games. Here we have a game on Steam called Bub Block, which, yeah, looks like nothing. Like a Fortress clone would be my guess. Free, English only. Here we have a game called Tet VR, which looks like it's a 3D Tetris game. Not a terrible thought as far as a Tetris game. $4.99 is fairly cheap, really cheap for a VR game. So I'll put that on the follow list. We'll see if people like it. Of course, if you're paying $600 to get a VR headset and all you're doing is playing with blocks and playing Tetris, you've really wasted your money. Destructoid has Nacon Connect 2021 set in July. Do they have a specific day? July 6th. They'll be making announcements around Blood Bowl 3, which I didn't realize that was in work. The Lords of the Ring Golem, which I'm glad to hear that's still in development. And Vampire the Masquerade Swan Song, which is either a new game or at least it's a Vampire the Masquerade game in development. It's not Bloodlines 2 though, so you have to be careful about not getting confused. Yeah. Gamatsu has Alteos Beyond Chronos DLC episode Yamato launching June 10th for the Oculus Quest. More and more VR announcements. I wonder if this is the case that the VR announcements are getting pushed out early so that there's more room for the non-VR games during E3, or if we're going to see a lot of announcements around VR this year at E3.
My raging flames have got your back. Twig
Guess we
won't
go
do
ahead
a
and
thing.
attack there. Gamatsu also has an article. Needy Girl Overdose has been delayed to an unannounced date. This game did not look good, so it's no surprise that it might be delayed, but it's a little funny that it's delayed because I doubt any polish you try to put on that game is going to improve it much.
My
So
raging flames have got your twig won't do
I
a
probably
thing.
would assume that they would have just pushed it out and been done with it. Here we have a game on Steam called Noir Punk, which
There is not a soul without sin.
You were done for.
they're calling it a side-scrolling detective steampunk
wicked.
retro
Spare the innocent.
game.
You're a fiery one. You're a fiery one.
I don't know how much actual game is here, whether it's an adventure game or whether it's a platforming game. It looks like it's a platforming game, mostly. It's free to play, English only. So I guess check it out if you're interested, but since it's free, there's no reason for me to criticize it. So
We grow weary of strife.
I shall give birth to a new world. Thus, the world begins.
By your will, O Lord.
was that a good move? I don't know. Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Empower, which just looks like an asset flip first-person shooter, maybe with some sword play too.
The real battle begins.
Seems to have some weird gravity happening.
Heaven nor
Yeah,
earth
it's
shall be your
a
refuge.
partially zero-G arena, early access, standard and VR mode, which is going to be weird. $17.99, English only. Let's go ahead and play that.
Uncharted desert awaits.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Solstice, which doesn't look like anything of interest.
Best of luck to you.
$2.39, English only. And then Gametsu has Lego Builder's Journey coming to the Switch and PC in June 22. This was a mobile game that felt very weird because it didn't have like Lego minifigs in it, and it just felt like a little experiment. I'm fine with it coming out. It gives me a different kind of Lego game to potentially play, but yeah, it's more of a making a path for the child Lego character to make it to the other Lego characters. If anything, this is probably the first Lego game that actually is a Lego game, where you're playing with Lego characters and not just playing with minifigs that are doing things that are completely incapable of being done with Legos. Let's see, if I play this, I can't do this.
Nothing personal. It's justice.
How could you not understand?
And then do we want to evolve?
Be gone.
Probably not. That's probably a mistake, but
Despair or
whatever.
slay. Don't take this personally.
It will support ray tracing. So yeah, there's no reason not to put this
There is
game
not a soul without
on the fall
sin.
list.
Let us conclude.
This
Punish
might
the
be
wicked.
the idea
Spare the innocent.
in which Lego games go in general. But if you did make Lego games this way, knows that this game has no theme, so this is not Lego Marvel Spider-Man or anything like that. And so if you were to throw a Spider-Man in a game like this, which is being published directly by Legos and not Warner Brother Games or TT Games, and being made by a completely different company, if you were to try and put Spider-Man in a game like this, you would be missing a significant amount of content that you would normally expect to see.
The fists of immortal
Um,
supremacy.
It won't be long now.
Compared to a TT game. And I don't think kids are going to understand that you went back and started over with a different company. They're just going to say that this Lego game is totally different than the previous Lego games, and thus it's worse because it's lacking comparable features. Alright, well then that puts me at the end of the tabs at nearly 4 hours into the stream. So I'm going to go through my main Twitter and see if there's anything new that needs to be talked about. Phantasy Star Online 2 has been talked about. Destructoid's still very much retweeting a whole bunch of stuff over and over again. Well, I could do this.
Designs are like unhatched dragon eggs.
Oh, I probably could have done that.
Behold the fists of immortal supremacy. Sundering fist.
See, and this is the point where I probably will lose.
I shall give birth to a new world.
That game Sledge Life has been refused classification in Australia. Which, okay. That seems a little extreme, but whatever.
I will rise.
Blueprints!
You're a solid fighter.
Yeah. It is crazy. Like, nothing has come out in the last 4 hours. That, of course, me starting later in the evening and going late into the evening certainly makes it so it's not super surprising that there hasn't been any new news between after 6 in the evening to 10 p.m. in the evening. Which I guess that might save me some time overall. But it is definitely not my desire to stream so late into the evening. It's just insomnia. So yeah, all I have is literally one game that came out in that time called The Magnificent Truffle Pigs, which is from AMC Games, and it's more kind of an interactive story than anything, I think. We had heard about this, and I guess it is now out, and we shall see. Now, do I want to see AMC start making video games? Probably not. Very well may be that AMC is not the AMC that makes TV shows. This other game, Airplane Mode, you can see is 56% positive. So their first attempt failed kind of miserably. I would say I don't really trust AMC to make TV that's good, so I don't know why I would trust them to make video games that were good. We did, throughout this stream, manage to win 50 ranked with Dragoncraft, which gets us more flair, and we reached level 100 with Swordcraft, which gives us more flair. And we have a shrinking collection of things to collect, as it were, for rewards. Seems like they're not even showing the ones that have been completely completed now. Oh no, there they are, at the bottom. Just wasn't scrolling down far enough. We could look over here and let's see. As far as flair goes, there are 8 pages of flair. We are still missing, let's see, I guess 1 here for Fairycraft, and 1 here for Fairycraft, probably 1 here for Swordcraft. I imagine that's how this all breaks down, is that once you get to the max levels of each of these, you will have all of them. And this is probably the last Portalcraft flare, and then the rest of these flares you get from doing single player content or something else. Getting up and ranked. Possibly unlocking specific cards in specific expansions. Clearly some of these are just also given to you for accomplishing single player crossover event stuff. Emblem wise, we have 21 pages, and this seems to just constantly grow, and it would be interesting to find out if there are potentially 50 pages right now or 100 pages right now of potential flares you could have had. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 50. It'd be slightly shocking if there could be 21 pages of 10 emblems or 100 pages of 10 emblems. And then flags never change. You get all those flags by default. And then you've got our scores. We're still around C, rank 0. And massive amount of victories for ranked matches in Forestcraft, which really highlights I should never play Forestcraft again. I need to instead be playing Runecraft, which is our lowest one, or just jump around to a lot of the other victories too. And see, Forestcraft is at level 137 and is definitely a danger point where it'll hit the max of level 200 far before these other categories make it to even 150. Anyways, that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and get me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.